Bom dia, caros participantes. É com grande entusiasmo que regressamos à aula magna do IPV para o segundo dia do S4
Welcome
Congress.
to our
O jornalista Paulo
second
Sérgio
day
tem
of the
novamente
S4
a missão de nos
Congress.
conduzir pelos caminhos da segurança,
Now we'll be
proteção
talking
e
about
serviço em
safety,
eventos
security and
desportivos.
service in
Pedimos
sports
a vossa
events.
salva de
And
palmas para Paulo
so, a
Sérgio.
round of applause to Paulo Sérgio.
Muito bom dia.
Good morning.
Bem-vindos ao segundo
Welcome
dia
to the second day
deste evento.
of this
Vamos
event.
falar esta manhã para
Let's
começo dos desafios
talk
da segurança
about
e de segurança
the
nos
challenges
eventos desportivos.
of
Peço por isso
the sports
que
events,
subam ao palco
and so I would
os,
like to call
elementos
to
que
the
vão constituir
stage
este
the
painel.
members
Mário
of the
Gadelha,
panel, Mário
Brigadeiro-Geral da
Gadelha,
Guarda Nacional
from
Republicana,
the
tem uma carreira
Guarda Nacional
diversificada,
Republicana,
como
with a
comandante
very
em várias
diversified
unidades da GNR,
career,
incluindo o Comando
including the Territorial Command of
Setúbal.
and he also worked as a strategy activity and police coordinator of Euro 2004. Thank you very much.
Daniel Seabra,
Daniel
doutorado em
Seabra,
Ciências Sociais,
with a
especialização
PhD in
Antropologia Social e
Science
Cultural
in Social
pelo Instituto de
Sciences
Ciências
by
Sociais
the Social
da
Science
Universidade de
Institute of the
Lisboa,
University of
desenvolveu a tese
Lisbon,
Claques Portuenses,
where he
Instituto de
where he
Grupos
presented his
Organizados de Adeptos de
thesis
Futebol em
on
Contexto
cheers, football cheers.
Ricardo Conceição
Ricardo
é comissário
Conceição,
da Polícia
he's
de
a
Segurança Pública,
commissionary
atualmente é o
of
chefe
police,
do Núcleo
head
de Operação e
chief
Assessoria Técnica e coordenador
of
do Ponto Nacional de
technical
Informações sobre o
assistance
desporto
about
na PSP.
sports in the police forces.
Por fim,
Last but not
elemento
least,
do SIS, ao SIS
coming
compete a
from
produção de
SIS,
informações de segurança
so
para
protection of
apoio
information,
à
of
tomada
safety
de decisão do
information.
Executivo, o Sr. SIS. É assim que
Mr.
vamos
SIS.
falar e apelidar.
Let's call him like that,
painel.
Mr.
Sejam
SIS.
todos,
So
bem-vindos
welcome
a esta
to
primeira
all of
sessão
you
da manhã.
to this first
E
session,
vamos
for
começar
this first morning
por
session,
apresentações. Vamos
and
ter
we will
apresentações de
have,
cada dos
we are
elementos
going to have the
constituem
presentations.
este,
Presentations by the
Sr.
members of this
Brigadeiro-Geral, faz
panel.
favor. É o primeiro.
I'll give you the floor, first of all.
Muito bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Antes de mais, agradecer à
I
organização
would like to
e ao
thank the
Sr.
organizing
Presidente
committee
em
and
meu nome
the
próprio, em nome da Guarda
president
Nacional
on behalf,
Republicana, o convite.
in my
É
name and on
gosto estar
behalf
aqui
of the Guarda
e
Nacional
depois de passar
Republicana.
aqui o dia
It's such an
convosco.
honor. And after spending a day
confirmei
yesterday
ainda
with you
mais
all,
que,
I confirmed
foi
that it
muito
was
útil ter estado
very
aqui.
useful
Muitos parabéns pela
for
organização e pela
having
forma
been
como está a
here.
decorrer,
And so thank you to
este
the organizing
evento.
committee.
Eu sou o diretor de operações da
I
Guarda
am the
Nacional
operation
Republicana. Nos
director of the
próximos
Guarda
15
Nacional
minutos vou
Republicana,
tentar,
and for the
passar aqui
next
algumas
15
ideias,
minutes I will try to
reflexões,
convey some information, some
sobre,
reflections
aquilo
about
que, a
what
conferência se
the
propõe,
conference is all
e
about,
sobre programa,
and about a
especial da Guarda
specific, a
Nacional
special
Republicana,
program of the
relacionado
Guarda
com o
Nacional
tema
Republicana
da conferência.
regarded
Portanto, eu
with the
vou
subject of the
tentar
conference. So I will try
seguir
to follow
estes 5 pontos.
these
Eu
5
trouxe aqui algumas
points,
notas, mas eu
these 5
normalmente
time
depois
picks.
tomo
I
as
brought
notas,
some
mas
notes,
depois,
and
é mais
usually
para
I
não
make
perder muito
notes,
tempo,
but I don't
porque
use
gosto
them
mais
really.
de
I
fazer
prefer
tipo de conversa e tortura.
I prefer
Portanto, estes
to
pontos vão todos
talk
eles
to you.
convergir
And so
para
these
programa que
points
nós denominamos e que foi criado em
have to do with the
2023,
program created
que é
in
o programa,
2023, which is the
Desporto em
program
Segurança,
Sports in
Crescer
Safety
com Fair
to
Play.
grow with fair play.
Mas antes de lá chegarmos, para
But before
percebermos
reaching
como é que
that,
nós aqui chegamos, deixem-me
for you
fazer
to understand
aqui,
how you got
algumas
there,
notas,
let me
desde logo,
say a few
uma
things.
nota
Well,
histórica
an
e uma
historical
nota de
note, first
enquadramento
of all, and strategic
uma nota histórica
framework,
porque nós chegámos aqui
because
e
we
poderíamos
got
ir ao
here
século
and we
XIV,
could go back to the
ao
14th
início daquilo
century,
que foi
to
a
the
função
beginning of
polícia,
what
e
was
poderíamos
the
dizer a raiz para todas
creation
as
of the
polícias,
police
os
forces,
quadrilheiros,
law
mas nós
enforcement,
fixámos para nós,
but
Guarda Nacional
for
Republicana,
us, Guarda
a data
Nacional
de 10 de
Republicana,
dezembro de
we have
1801,
the
uma
date
data da
of
nossa
1801, which is the
a
date
data
of our
em que foi
foundation.
criada a
So,
Guarda Real de Polícia.
the
E desde
Royal
aí,
Guard of Police
temos
was
marcado todo
created.
percurso
And since
ao
there,
longo
we've
dos
been
séculos
having
em
a
que os
path
valores
throughout
que
the
hoje poderemos
centuries
falar
where the
e
values
que
that
vão terminar naquilo que é o
we
nosso
can
programa
talk about
Crescer com Fair
today.
Play, têm sido
have
perenes.
been
Portanto, esta seria a nota histórica.
very
A nota
important.
em termos
So the
de
historical note is
enquadramento
that
estratégico,
in terms of
as
strategic
instituições
framework,
sempre
the
tiveram,
institutions have
mais
always
ou menos
had more or
sistematizada a
less,
sua estratégia, porque só
so
assim
it's
conseguiram
strategy,
cumprir a
because
missão, atingir
otherwise
os
they won't be
objetivos,
able to achieve the
fixar a
objectives
visão e definir
and
os valores.
to define
Nos
values.
últimos anos,
In
desde
the
os
last
anos
year,
90,
since the 90s of the
tornou-se,
20th century,
notório
it
que
became
isso foi
very
formalizado
obvious that
em
that was
documentos. Nós também
formalized in
temos,
documents.
essa prática
And
de
we also
formalizar em
have
documentos
that
aquilo que é a estratégia
practice
da
to
Guarda. A
formalize
estratégia
in
da Guarda,
documents
neste momento, é
the
a estratégia da
strategy of
Guarda
the Guard.
2025.
And so it's the
Estamos a
strategy
iniciar percurso de
2025.
formação
We are
estratégica
beginning a
para o
strategic
período
training
que não
period
sabemos
for
ainda se será
the period
2030 ou se terá que ser
2030
mais
or
curto,
maybe a
considerando as
shorter
conjunturas e
period
as
according
mudanças
to
que,
the
o
situation,
nosso
to the
sistema
present situation and the
internacional nos
changes of our
apresenta.
international
Mas,
system.
neste enquadramento,
But in
queria-vos
this
dar,
framework, I would like to
uma
give
primeira
you
nota. A
a
primeira
first
nota é
note.
que
So the
não
first
vos vou
note
passar
is
com a
that I
missão nem
won't
com as
bother
tarefas,
you with the
que é aquilo
tasks
que nós
or the
fazemos,
mission,
mas queria-vos dar uma
but I would
nota
like
sobre
to
aquilo que nós queremos
tell you
ser, ou
something
seja,
about
sobre a
what we
visão.
want
E sobre a
to
visão
become,
dizer-vos que
about the
a
vision.
Guarda Nacional
And I
Republicana
want to tell you
quer ser
that
uma
the
força de
Guarda
segurança
Nacional
de
Republicana
referência,
wants to
valorizada
be
interna
a
e externamente,
reference safety
reconhecida pela excelência dos
guard
serviços que presta
acknowledged
e
by the
baseada
services
numa
that it
Guarda
renders and
moderna
based on a
e cada
modern
vez mais
guard
humana,
and more
mais
human,
próxima e de
closer
confiança.
and a
E é aqui,
trustworthy
nesta
one.
última
And
parte
it's
da
in
nossa
this
visão
last
que
part of
vamos
our
alinhar,
vision that
então,
we will
a
align
nossa apresentação.
our
É
presentation.
assim que os
It's
nossos
like
mais
that
de
our
22.000
over
militares e civis,
22,000 militaries, many of them present here today, do on their daily basis, always in a permanent interaction and as part of society where we live in.
Para mais facilmente fixarmos os nossos valores,
In order to tell you about our values, I would like to tell you that the Guarda is human, and human is a summary of the values of union, of loyalty, of discipline, of transparency, and competence, which is our character in terms of values. In the strategic field scope, we talked about yesterday about the Saint-Denis Convention and about the protection, about the safety, the security and the service, and the Guarda Nacional Republicana, when it established the strategy 2020, created a strategic path, the 4 S's: security, safety, social and support. So, as you see, the Guarda Nacional Republicana is also a very necessary partner in this issue of safety, security and service. And within this strategic path and our 5 strategic guidelines, I would like to stress the guideline number 1, which is one of the guidelines that we have to develop our activity, is to reinforce proximity and visibility. And to finish this part of this strategic framework, I would like to tell you that the motto of the Guarda is, by the law, and
desde logo a Grey, podemos assumir como o povo, a sociedade, os cidadãos,
and by the nation. So we are interested on people, on the citizens, and so the center, the core of the Guarda is people, and people in a double sense. So people for whom we work every day, where we are integrated, we are part of society, we are not working for society, we are society in which we work in, and so we see people like that in an internal way. So our people, and to take care of our militaries, of our, and the conditions so that they can perform well. So that's our gravity center. So people is our main core. And we develop the activity, and we work for these people in this territory, which is much more than the national territory. It's the national territory, and all the territory where the Guarda Nacional Republicana is projected around the world, and also in the movements of people, which was one of the main activities that we develop. And let me tell you, we develop, and I must pay tribute to the militaries, to all the guards, to all the officers of the Guarda Nacional Republicana, because we swear to develop all these activities with this vision, with this mission, and if it's necessary, with the sacrifice of our own lives. And let me tell you this, and it's such an evidence that what happened on August 30th, when 5 of our officers gave what is the most valuable, their lives. Close by, in Peso da Régua. So continuing and talking about what I am here to talk to you about, well, the strategic objectives, I won't waste a lot of time, but within our card, I would like to underline 2 strategic objectives. I would like to underline the strategic objective number 2 and number 18. And from the 18 is what all our officers do as their mission. So let's see how, as I was saying, more specifically, what is criminal prevention and community policing. So without going into details, because I don't have enough time,
que é quase a mesma coisa, mas não é exatamente a mesma coisa, mas deixamos isso para outros fóruns e vamos então à questão da prevenção criminal e do policiamento comunitário. São estratégias de intervenção policial direcionadas para resolver problemas concretos de segurança que são desenvolvidos quer a nível nacional, quer a nível local. Com o objetivo de manter a presença próxima e preventiva,
maintaining a preventive presence, of getting the Guarda Nacional Republicana closer to the citizen and to solve specific problems of the community.
Onde é que nós desenvolvemos esta atividade?
This activity. We develop this activity
em todo o território nacional,
in the whole national territory, in 94% of the national territory, with people, close to the people, knowing people, because as I said before, we are part of the society where we are integrated and where our officers develop that activity. They are part of that society, they know that society, and it's an added value. So we don't go to the territory, we are in the territory with people. Figures are always boring, but let me present to you some figures about this issue, about criminal prevention and community policing, which is developed by our officers, in specialized sections, with the officers recruited and with a specific training, with specific competences, personal competences, transversal competences. They know the realities, they know the people where they are included in. We have around 4,201 and 87 deployments, and some of them do this with less or more intensity. It depends on the phenomena of the state of the year that we are in, but we are talking about 24 programs, active programs, where they work on a permanent basis with people. I would like to tell you that in our area of competence, we have over 4,000 schools, 1,000 health centers, and 1,200 clubs or sports clubs or associations. In terms of 2 focus targets of these programs that we find very important, our children, our students. We have over 600,000 students in our area and over 44,000 elderly people with special needs. And I would say that almost on a daily basis, they get in touch with these people.
mais preocupação
with
ainda
the
nos
ones
apresentam.
that concern us the most.
Vamos então ver agora estes
Now
destes
let's,
24,
from this
eu
24,
sublinhava aqui
I would
dois
like to
ou três,
underline 2 or
sublinhava
3.
desde logo
I would like to
a
underline
Escola Segura,
the Safe School.
programa
It's a
muito
program, it's a very
e
important
que também
program,
este que nasceu em
and
23
it was
do
created
Desporto em
in
Segurança,
2023,
enquadra-se também
and
nesta
it is
questão da Escola
framed
Segura.
in this issue
Também
of a
com a
safe
estratégia
school
integrada de segurança
with an
urbana,
integrated
começámos a trabalhar
strategy in
num programa
urban
que é a
safety.
Universidade
We
Segura
started to work on
e
a
que
program
estamos
which is a
numa
safe
universidade, estamos num
university.
politécnico,
So we are
certamente a
in
Guarda tem interações
university,
com
in a
este
polytechnical.
politécnico
I'm sure
e
that
no
the
âmbito
Guarda
deste
Nacional
programa
Republicana has
poderá ter
interactions
mais
with the
interações
Polytechnic
com
Institute
este
of
e com
Viseu,
todas as instituições
and
universitárias
so
que
we
estão na nossa área.
have relationships with all the universities, and then we have another one, which is we have to signal all the elderly people who need special support and that we help them throughout the year. We have a program to help the disabled people, people with disabilities, and to grow with a fair play created in 23. We have 2 years giving steps in this program, and we want to invest a lot on this program to develop our objectives of partnership.
Isto só é possível.
This is only possible, of course, and we believe that alone we don't do a lot. So it only makes sense because we adopted collaboration strategies, partnership strategies. Systematically, we knock on doors of partnerships, of partners, and partners knock on our door, and our door is always open and is wide open, in fact, for those who want to knock on our door. And we don't do anything else because our resources are finite. And so we have about 30 protocols, 29 really, and they are active. And this slide illustrates, of course, it doesn't have all the entities with which we have the protocol, and not all the entities with which we relate.
I'll
just mention this program, Safe School, because the program Sports in Safe Sports is integrated in this program, Safe School. It comes from the Ministry of Education and Internal Affairs since 1992 and aims at guaranteeing the safety at school and the surrounding environment to prevent risk behaviors. So it's one of the most emblematic ones, and it will help with the sample that we already have and with which we have worked for so many years. Amongst the intervention areas of this program, we have, in the scope of this conference, it's important to underline the area of sports and safety in sports. So it's a figures are what they are, but in 2023 we did over 32,750 actions, about 131 per day. And so we are going to talk right now in this cascade that I try to align to get to this program, Safe Sports, to grow with Fair Play, which was launched in 2023. And it was accepted and incorporated in society. We started to reach the associations, the clubs, the parents, the schools, the students, and we are doing what we have to. We have 2 years working on this, and we find it the early beginning, but we have very ambitious objectives. So this program is directed to sports clubs, federations, associations, municipalities and schools, and other partners that may find this program useful for them to collaborate and add value to what are the objectives. So it's also meant for families, for the athletes, for sports agents and for local communities.
Como eu já tinha dito,
As I said
este
before,
programa é
this
complementar
program
do
is
programa Escola
complementary
Segura, por
of
isso eu
Safe
quis falar no
School. So
programa
I wanted to
Escola Segura.
talk to you about the program
dos
Safe School.
objetivos
So it's one
é
of the
a
objectives
promoção da
is the
ética no
promotion of ethics
Pretendemos
in
contribuir
sports.
para a
So we
eliminação
intend
da
to
violência no
contribute
desporto.
for the elimination of
Prevenir,
violence in sports,
a
to
difusão de
prevent
mensagens
the
de incitamento à
dissemination
violência, ao
of
extremismo, à
violence
radicalização e à
and
xenofobia,
extremism
ou
and
seja, criar
xenophobia.
fair play,
So we want to
desde
create
logo
fair
nos
play
nossos jovens, em
since
toda a comunidade,
very,
que,
at an
como
early
vimos
stage in
ontem,
our young people
pelo
in
vídeo
community.
que nos
As
trouxe
we
do
could
Brasil,
see from the
os
video
pais são
brought by
importantes,
Brazil,
os
parents
professores
are
são
important,
importantes, a
teachers are
comunidade
important,
é
community
importante.
is important.
Deixava-vos então aqui
I
algumas
would like
notas sobre o
to
programa em
leave you
2023.
with some notes
Nós
about the
empenhámos
program in the year of 2023.
nestas ações
So
de
we had
sensibilização
an involvement of
e conseguimos chegar a mais de
228
6.000
officers,
pessoas
and then
dentro daquilo
we
que
were
é
able to
a
reach
amostra-alvo, deste
6,007
programa.
people.
Temos na nossa área de
We have in our
responsabilidade,
responsibility
como já tinha
area
dito, à volta de 1.200
around
associações desportivas e
1,200
clubes
sports
e
clubs
mais
and
de 70.000
associations and over
atletas.
70,000 athletes.
E para não vos maçar mais,
And
espero não ter
not to bother
passado
you
muito tempo que me
anymore,
deram dos 15 minutos,
I would
deixava
like
só
to
como,
give you some
título de
conclusions.
conclusão, em 2024,
So, in the year of
já
2024,
conseguimos
we
ampliar
were able
ligeiramente
to
o programa,
increase the
fizemos
program.
137 ações,
We carried
e
out
chegamos a
137 actions, and we touched 6,715 people. We are also in Viseu, so I will give you an information about Viseu. As we are in Viseu, Viseu has around 200 specialized officers and working in this field, in community policing in these 24 programs with these 30 protocols. Of course, in Viseu does not have, they don't have the same intensity, but they are around 200 officers that also in this issue of sport safety in 2024 were able to reach to 500 people in the area of Viseu, in our responsibility area. And to finish my presentation, I would like to tell you that, as it is predicted in the Saint-Denis Convention, the integrated strategy, we also invest on this kind of approach, a network to create a network which is interinstitutional, but also a trustworthy network between those institutions. We find it to be the basis for everything, centered on people, based on people, and through a Guarda Nacional Republicana more and more modern, more human, and more trustworthy in this environment that we find very important in a more integrated way. A Guarda Nacional Republicana, which was always your Guarda, and so a Guarda of everyone for everyone. And thank you for your attention.
Muito obrigado, Major-General, a Brigadeiro-General, peço desculpa, Diretor de Operações da Guarda Nacional Republicana, Mário Botelho. Professor Daniel Seabra.
Professor Daniel Seabra, please, you have the floor.
Eu espero que vai funcionar, porque ele, entretanto, eu vou começar a falar mesmo antes do PowerPoint.
Before the PowerPoint, I'm going to start
tempo residual antes
talking, some
do que o
residual time before the clock starts ticking.
O meu agradecimento
I would like to say that to thank the chairman of APCVD, Rodrigo Cavaleiro, somebody who I hold in the highest regard.
E, portanto, para mim é gosto estar aqui.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Sob proposta
and precisely because on the proposal of Professor Rodrigo Cavaleiro that I'm going to approach the casual style, which is considered to be a style, and talking about its origin.
Posso-me afastar?
Yes.
O seu crescimento em Portugal, as
Its growth in
motivações
Portugal,
e
motivations and
fazê-lo
interpretations.
como na condição
I'll do it
de antropólogo, que é
as
precisamente a
an
minha
anthropologist,
formação de base
which
em
is
todos os graus,
my training
académicos
really
que
at
tenho.
university.
E faço porque neste momento tenho
Because-
uma investigação em curso
Because I
ainda,
have
apenas
a
digamos
piece of
que na
research,
sua
an
segunda
ongoing
fase, e portanto estes
piece of
dados são
research, and these data
preliminares e passíveis
are preliminary
posteriormente de ser
and
alterados.
can be
E
later
gostava de dizer
changed.
que
And I would like to
esta
say
apetência
that
para estudar o fenómeno
this
surgiu
likeness I
precisamente
have
na
for
sequência de
this
trabalho que
phenomenon
eu orientei,
has to do with something that I really
do senhor
supervised
subintendente, hoje
from
subintendente Hélder Santos,
Superintendent
foi um estudo
Hélder
exploratório que ele
Santos,
desenvolveu
which is an
enquanto
exploratory
tese de licenciatura
study
no Instituto Superior de
as
Ciências
that he
Policiais,
developed
e, a meu
in
ver,
the Institute
eu,
of
pelo menos,
Police
desconheço outro,
Sciences,
continua a ser,
and it
na
still
minha ótica,
is, in my view,
o trabalho em Portugal
in
que até
Portugal,
hoje, eu desconheço outros, como
and I
disse,
don't know others, as I've
melhor
said,
retrata
that
esta subcultura
best
e gostava
really
de
shows
fazer,
this
neste momento,
subculture
este
and
tributo,
portrays this
porque,
phenomenon.
de certa forma, sinto também que
Because
estou a
I
reparar
feel that
alguma
I am
injustiça relativamente a esse
trying
trabalho, à
to
forma como
put
foi
some
classificado. Ora
injustice
bem, eu
right
neste momento
in the
estou a
way
desenvolver
because of how
entrevistas
it was
semi-diretivas
classified.
com
We have some
elementos que
directives
se identificam
with, I have
como
some
sendo
directives
casuals.
that
Estou a realizar
are
uma observação não participante,
casual.
porque a participante
I'm
é mais
not,
difícil,
I'm not
implica risco, mas
participating
não a nego,
in as
se
an
tiver
agent
possibilidade, poderei fazê-la,
because it
e,
has
obviamente,
other
uma
risks,
pesquisa
but I'm
documental e
also
bibliográfica.
research
Ora bem,
into
qual é
books
o
and
problema,
documents. What is the main
dos
problem
casuals?
of
É que, do ponto
casuals?
de vista das ciências sociais, é um
From
estilo
the
praticamente
social
ignorado na
sciences
investigação. Tem
point of
sido
view,
ao longo dos
it's
anos.
something that has been
E é ignorado
ignored,
sobretudo por dois motivos.
and
Ponto
mainly
número
for two
é muito
reasons.
difícil
First,
de o
because
identificar
it's
enquanto
very
objeto de estudo,
difficult to
porque
identify
o próprio
it,
estilo casual fica
because
em zonas,
casual style
digamos que zonas de interseção com
are
outras subculturas.
is found in
No caso
interception
concreto
areas
do futebol,
with
fica
other
numa zona de
cultures,
interseção com o
with
hooliganismo.
football, for
Há
instance, that
autores até
intersects
que
with
utilizam a expressão
hooliganism,
hooligans barra casuals,
and
no
some
sentido
authors even
precisamente para
use
ilustrar a
the
dificuldade que há
expression
em
hooligan
proceder a
slash
esta delimitação.
casual.
E eu
So it's
entendo
difficult to
que, apesar
really
da dificuldade,
contain
é possível essa
this
delimitação.
in
E, para
a
além disso,
specific area.
as ciências sociais não deram muita atenção
Social
porque se
sciences
previa
haven't really
que
paid
fosse uma moda passageira.
attention to
O que é
this
facto é que não é
phenomenon
uma moda
because
passageira,
this is
que
not
começou,
just
passou a ser
a
possível
trend
identificar, e já
that
vamos ver, no
would
final
go
da década
away
de
because
70
it
em Inglaterra,
hasn't.
mas
In the
manteve-se.
1970s
E, portanto,
started in England,
justifica-se
but it has
precisamente
still
uma
it's
análise
still going
no
on and
âmbito
it's still
da antropologia e da
visible.
sociologia da juventude,
So in
assim
terms
como,
of
uma
youth
análise no
sociology,
âmbito da
it has to
antropologia,
do
da sociologia,
with
dos
an
Ora, sobre
analysis
isso,
and also has to
gostava de dizer
deviation.
o seguinte,
I would like to say
identificar
to
casuals com
identify
violência é, obviamente,
casuals with violence
provavelmente
bit-
o elemento mais importante, mas é uma
is an
análise
important
empobrecedora,
factor, but it's
porque,
not
nos
complete
retira de um conjunto de
because
narrativas
it will
que estão para além da
ignore
própria
a number
violência
of
e que
narratives
são
that go
absolutamente
beyond
importantes para
violence
compreender o fenómeno.
and that are very
Todos
important.
nós condenamos a violência dos
We
casuals.
all
Portugal teve, sobretudo,
condemn the
houve,
violence of
enfim, dois
casuals,
casos ou três
and
mais
we had
mediáticos.
2 or
Tivemos
3
a
very
tentativa de invasão
important
do
cases,
Estádio do Dragão. Tivemos
the invasion
recentemente,
of the Estádio do
cerca de
Dragão,
30,
and we had 30 individuals
creio
that
que até
were
já estão em julgamento, ou até
kept
já
in
estão
custody, or some of them
condenados. E, é óbvio
have
que
already
todos
been to
condenamos,
trial.
é óbvio que
We
que os
condemn
crimes
these
têm de ser
phenomena,
punidos,
and
mas
you have to punish the
condenar
crimes,
apenas,
but
sem
to
procurar
condemn
perceber a
without
raiz do
trying to
fenómeno,
understand
os
the
quadros de
root of the
referência em que as
problem
ações
and the
são
reference,
levadas a cabo,
the
as
reference,
motivações,
the
os
framework
significados que os
within
sujeitos
which
atribuem,
they
é empobrecedor
occur,
e
it's
é
impoverishing the
mau
subject,
contributo no
and
sentido
it's
em que
not a good
temos
contribution
dificuldade
to
em
the
compreender.
understanding of the phenomenon.
Ora, como disse, não são apenas histórias de violência, mas
It's not
uma
just
narrativa sobre a
stories
condição
of
juvenil,
violence,
depois
but a
podemos discutir
narrative
isso, o que é
of
que eu
young
entendo como
people.
condição
And then we can
da
discuss
parte
that.
dos legisladores e da parte
In
do poder
terms of
político
the
e também
legislators and
da-
the
sobretudo da
politicians
comunicação social,
and the
há
mass
uma
media,
narrativa
there
sobretudo
is a
centrada,
narrative
na
that
violência, que, a meu
that
ver,
focuses
é impeditiva
on violence,
de
that
compreendimento mais alargado
prevents
do fenómeno
that prevents our wider understanding of the phenomenon. Because if we do so, we'll have better strategies and wider strategies to approach the problem, and only in a logic of condemning it. To understand the casuals, we have to understand their context, which is the post-war context, where population started to have better living conditions, but there were some certain sectors of society, like inner city neighborhoods, that developed a number of young subcultures after May 1968. Skinheads, mods, rockers, teddy boys, a number of subcultures that later become important to understand the emergence of casuals. In the Thatcher era, and according to the second neoliberal policy by Margaret Thatcher, led to some social convulsion, and we had this casual subculture. It's not possible to identify a very concrete line, a very concrete trend, but of the different juvenile trends, several converged on this casual style. It's a lot more important to consider hooliganism, which was the one that really had ulterior consequences. And it's a style I'd like to consider it a style. Hooliganism were associated with hooligans, skinheads, teddy boys, mods. They resulted in the casual style. They use design clothes, for instance, it has to do with fashion, to which converge young people from different cultures. Consumerism was also a characteristic feature, in the illusion of insertion in a given social class. So there were young people who stole sneakers and other pieces of clothing, and there is a very important book about that. So they had a specific style that had to do with fashion and aesthetic, and somebody wrote about that, a professor from the University of Manchester. They have no accessories, they have a stealthy approach, because wearing designer clothes would make them sort of to be ignored by hooligans and the police, because they dressed in a way that they sought to be more, socially accepted. In addition to that, in the Portuguese context, they wear dark designer clothes. They do not identify with sports clubs, so you can't identify them when they try to, have confrontations, but you can't really identify. No club signs, really. They wear black or dark clothes, and so, in fact, they end up by being identified by other casuals and by the police, the security forces. They move around in small groups, and they are violent, and they're known for that. What are the development? Why are they growing? This subject has been studied in other countries, and there is literature on this trend. They lead the clerks, so the leaders of clerks, and they know that, there's money involved. So the management of clubs also has to do with clerks sometimes. For instance, police control and repression, Leicester Group, for instance. Then social media, Roversi is mentioned, but there are Stephen Redbed and other authors, and you have, and that's to do with fashion too. In Portugal, they come from ultra groups that evolve to the casual style. What's the problem at the moment? We have two main profiles. Some older gangs that are really, they're in their 30s, that come from clerks, but the casuals can recruit and attract 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who are not part of the clerks and want to be part of the casual groups in a logic, and that's what they say, that is associated with violence. I only have 3 minutes left. What are the motivations? They support clubs. They have an essentialist vision of fans. To be a real fan of my club, I can't just say that I support Porto or Benfica, whatever. There's a territorial logic. They try to defend their territory in a bionivocal thought. They defend the honor of the club. They're the last really place where people can resort to defend the club. They also, some of them just want to socialize. They want to, so that they can have lunch or dinner and without being controlled by the police. And confrontation with other casuals, that is a feature. It's a male universe made up of very young people, not just age bracket, but the social aspect of being young. They don't have family responsibility. There are casuals who have socially accepted professions, but I can't disseminate all the information. But they have families, they have professions which are acknowledged socially, but they do not find it difficult to enter into confrontations with other people, and it's a diverse, socially diverse world. There are people from the working class and from inner city neighborhoods, and it's difficult. What are the ways to interpret
já vem de
this?
Norbert Elias e também do John Kerr.
From Kerr and Elias, we have in their work about hooliganism, we have a phenomenon of reversion. And I mean, these people try to, in their confrontations with other casuals, adversary casuals, and reverting the daily life, dull daily life. So the confrontation with other casuals, it is adrenaline driven, and they say they find pleasure in that. Even when they get hurt, when they're fighting, they are proud to show the fact within the group that they were attacked and show the scar, so to speak, because that is something that wins them admiration and prestige. This is a very important, viewpoint developed by the Oxford group. It's ritual violence. So fights between casuals have to do with the same parameters that we found in hooliganism. There's a kind of ethic, but because there's a championship, you go to the mass media, you see that there is a championship, and so there are hooligans that fight within themselves, and these confrontations are organized and have some kind of ethics that is underlying this confrontation.
Há bocado aqui com o Sr. Comissário Ricardo Conceição, se ele me estiver no chão,
if I'm already on the ground, the police have to help me up, help me to get up and go about my life. So there are some implicit rules, like in karate, like judo. This is not written. This is implicit. You can't yield weapons. And this has been worked very well from the Oxford group, by the Oxford group. For some, it's a strategy of asserting themselves, which is negative identity. At a certain stage in your life, especially for young people, for that youth profile, the objective is to affirm asserting themselves in the group through a negative identity, which in the football context, it's violence. In a rural, for instance, context, is slashing tires, is stealing chickens. It's identity. So we have to understand the casual style within the framework of youth subcultures. It's very liquid.
Mesmo dentro dos grupos casuals, há, digamos que debate,
there is a debate and latent conflict in which the oldest say that it's just fashion, but they assume to be casuals, and they want to be, I mean, in terms of self-identification, there is debate among them. It has to do with the social context, and you can't ignore this, and it is related to the social, cultural, and political framework to which it belongs, because we have a fragmented society in a paradigm which is more and more individualistic, in a society that is marked by hedonism, and even if it seems to be rational, we may agree or disagree with this, condemn it from a moral point of view, publicly and in courts of law, but there is a logic of rationality, and the more we understand it, this logic of action, because they take pleasure in violence. I could mention two cases, two statements. One of them, only to think of what, of the violence I can commit, and I just pee. And this is considered to be considered pleasure. It's strange, but it's a fact. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, professor Daniel Seabra.
Thank you, Professor Daniel Seabra. Ricardo Conceição, I'll give you the floor. Well, I would like to thank the President for the invitation done to the PSP and the work that has been developed within the scope of this Congress and from 2009 was possible due to you, Mr. President. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today our presentation wants to give you a perspective of what is the international cooperation from the police standpoint. And I would like to tell you about the risk and the commitment of the supporters of the PSP in international events. So we will try to follow this agenda, so the PND, to explain how the process of risk assessment is done and decision support, to specify how the teams of spotters are constituted and how they work, and then give you some numbers, give you some figures regarding the national context and data from UEFA competitions. And at the end, 2 or 3 lines to conclude. Regarding the creation of the PNIF network, yesterday we already referred the tragedies, mainly in the 80s, 89, and the episodes of violence, just like the World Cup in 98 in France, or even in 2000 in the Netherlands and in Belgium. And this set of circumstances, the incidents of violence created in these contexts, led us to create a solution that could face these situations. So what happened was that the fans traveled all around Europe, and the police responsible people in the cities where these events took place did not have the information and were not prepared to adapt their policing profile to each one of that activity. And that network allowed to create contact points throughout Europe through which we share information regarding fans, their characteristics, the number of fans who travel within the games, clubs or national teams. So, and they are very well prepared right now to have the right profile of policing in those environments. And of course, we hold meetings on a quarterly basis, and we talk about the lessons learned, practical cases, and new teachings, new thoughts, new ways to deal with the problem. And so, to sum things up, the network is a share of information that allows that the police approach has more success than it has been or that it had in the past. But it's certain that no matter the year and the circumstances, of course, we can become better. Concerning the risk assessment, well, in a police vision, we'll have 2 dimensions. A first one, which makes an evaluation and assessment of the history regarding a certain team, a certain club, certain fans, and in certain space, under certain circumstances, and we are able to assess the risk associated to a certain event, which will vary between these 3 levels in a very basic way. So, low, medium, and high risk. So this is an assessment used by the police, but it's also used by other organisms, namely mainly by UEFA, which also does it when it assesses the risks of its events. And based on that, we define a strategy to each one of the events based on the information that we have regarding the number of fans, their profile, the way that they travel, the way that they behave, and the opening that they demonstrate regarding the police, the law enforcement organizations. And based on that history, we can adapt our policing. And so, when we start the activity, of course, this process gains a new dimension, because we are talking mainly about people's behaviors. And now we have the assessment of the risk, but the dynamic risk assessment. So, to realize and the policing, and it's not the policing of the stadium, it's a policing approach which starts 2 days before, when the fans start to travel from their countries to Portugal, to the cities where these sports events take place. And many times we have games in the national territory in 2 days. And this, many times, it's very important, and it will, of course, have a consequence in the police approach. And we have to make a profile of the foreign fans, but also the national fans. And we have other approaches that can interfere, police approach, rival fans approach, that, of course, risk our assessment. In that need to adapt at every moment the police approach. And I was telling you, it's not only about the stadium policing, it's the framing from the moment they step foot on national territory, airports, centers of the cities, bars, and so we assess the risk over there too. And the interaction of fans is more, sometimes in those places, is more dynamic than in the stadium itself. And so this does not mean that this happens, but it's a bit graphic. But we balance between two tactical systems. Once again, the expression from football. So we privilege the left game through a policing profile, a proactive one, to try to look for the ideal communication with the fans, to realize what are their needs for information, a proactive activity, risk assessment with surgical interventions in the conflict points, allowing that conflict context does not escalate to something more serious. But in situations which are exceptional ones, thank God, sometimes the tactical game must be changed, and we need a more muscled intervention. So the tactics change, the fans too, and so we invest on a more extensive intervention and the use of force. As I tell you, we also choose the left tactics to create interaction with the fans, communication with the fans, and as it was said yesterday, many times that's the basis to mitigate the risk and the conflict with the football fans that have expression ways which are more complicated, but that are part of this context. Regarding the spotters, well, most of you know this unit of the PSP, and I have the pleasure to have some of them here. And I used to belong to the Spotters of Lisbon, and it's a police unit with a different weight and differentiated in these sports events. It's not better, it's not worse, it's not more important, less important, but it's transversal because it follows the fans from beginning to end. So we have have certain police members more vocated to certain areas, airports, management of traffic, of road traffic, fan concentration in the stadium. But the truth is that the spotters follow all that process and end up having this transverse characteristic regarding the fans. And because they are so important, because they are the voice, the visible way that this approach want to be proactive, based on positive dynamics, creation of dialogue mechanisms, interaction with the fans. But it works in the logics of an integrated policing. I bring you some pictures of the spotters. So, following the safety, the interaction with fans, in the concentration spots, here in downtown of a certain city, here the concentration of an European. You can see in this picture an European spotter, in this case a German spotter, in the stadium, of course, no surprise there, and in situations in more serious. So first intervention in the cities to mitigate the risk of a small conflict that can happen in the stadium. In most of the times, the fans that also know the professionals that are part of these teams and that have this very important dimension that I would like to convey with this message, which is the performance of the police, bearing in mind the nature of our institutions, no matter if it's the PSP or the Guarda Nacional Republicana, we act according to legal principles. And there is a very dimension in the context of sports events which has to do with the legal aspect of the police activity that goes beyond the regulations. So to those on the other side, the fan understands our intervention, our interaction, and that is essential to mitigate the risk, to decrease the stress, and to allow an event with a risk level, with an inferior risk level. And finally, unlike what referred my colleague from the Guarda Nacional Republicana, the figures help us to show the reality, and so I would like to present to you the reality of European competition 23-24. So the sports time, the anterior sports time. So we had all these teams playing on territory, on national territory, different teams with fans from different countries. But fans from the same country have ways of being which are very different, and you are aware that within the same teams there are several different profiles of fans. So 22 sports events. We are talking about over 800 fans and the involvement of 7,732 police officers. So this is our general data from the competitions of UEFA. So we had 700,000 Portuguese and 28,000 European. And from the 565 were Portuguese, and 32 came from the several units of spotters of the several units. And I would like to tell you about other European spotters that in the field, in the scope of cooperation, they reinforce the police authorities. And so in this principle of make it legal, a positive interaction with the fan are a very positive way when we welcome a foreign team to have police officers of that very same nationality in order to facilitate the communication. So to convey in a very clear way the communication. Just to tell you a perspective of the incidents, I was telling you, so 22 events, sports events, being analyzed. We are talking about 770 incidents, so we're talking about an average of 34 incidents by game. So, so why does this happen? Well, Professor Seabra was mentioning, and I would like to compliment him on that. There's also a championship played between the football fans in the very same day, where the UEFA competitions have a differentiated mediatism of the national ones. So this is also a privileged sport for the risk fans to show, for them to show Europe that they are more extreme, more violent regarding other groups. Well, regarding the flares, etc., pyrotechnics is still a problem. It's the most, the accident that happens the most, but I would like to, of course, to say thank you to the police forces because they are able to act in a preventive way. And we have 5 situations of invasion of the pitch, of the football pitch. And last but not least, having a more distant perspective of this presentation, well, this is a police perspective of a specific reality of the European competitions, but which is framed in a jigsaw. So this is a police approach which is integrated in an approach that we want to be institutionalized. So we all are a part of that, law enforcement, private, public associations, etc. We are aware that many of us already have done it, but there's a lot to do still, and we have to do better and better. We must continue to promote the dialogue between all of us. We are partners, and we must dialogue, a positive dialogue. We must avoid pointing fingers, and in a constructive way, and framed in a multi-institutional, integrated and balanced way, we all be better prepared to guarantee that sports events in Portugal will be safe and secure. I apologize because I exceeded 1 minute and a half, but anyway, thank you very much for your attention.
For these 4 fantastic presentations, and so I'm going to open 2 questions. I had a great deal of questions, but I'm going to give the floor to the audience so that we can move on to the next panel. No questions? Yes, 1 question.
Ali ao meio, por favor, o microfone.
Roving microphone. Good morning. I would like to ask a question to Ricardo Conceição. Yesterday, in the presentation by the people in charge of the security in sports events, and in terms of the incidents, in your view, what can we do by the people who organize the sports events in Portugal? If we had €1 million answer, that would be it. Knowing football and sports venues, there are several types of vulnerability. It's an infrastructure that is open 7 days a week, accessible to people 24 hours a day from different services, being it maintenance, bars, security. athletes a number of vulnerabilities that will make it a bit difficult, that prevention of entering pyrotechnic the entrance of pyrotechnic devices and the use of pyrotechnic devices in a logic of complementarity, that the private security and public security will not be able to prevent these instances altogether. Those pyrotechnic devices that have been found, for instance, we have been found in bathrooms, for instance. And there are a number of factors that seem to make it very difficult to prevent this phenomenon altogether. It's a way to, it's a way of organized fan groups to express themselves negatively, because they have their own championship, what they do on the stands, without detriment to the sports the game being played itself. It's very dear to their hearts, really. And they're motivated to adopt this kind of attitude and action. It's difficult to say, because my perspective, I have a police, I work from a police perspective, that may sometimes be criticized for being too conservative, less flexible. From the point of view of what we do, we have done whatever we can do. That has to do with the organizer's role. In terms of the league, for instance, is more investment in security, on CCTV, because on a weekly basis we identify and fine people who are in the wrong, and the numbers don't seem to be diminishing. So it's been growing, actually. Going back a little bit, it has to do with a way of expressing, of fans expressing themselves. It has to do with the fans and their psychology. As security forces, we do what we can within the spirit of convention, but we can all do something. And in terms of promoter, we have to have sanctions for people who have this kind of behavior. Misbehavior, rather. I am looking at the numbers in red, so people should be aware of the danger, because it has a graphic dimension. It's a light, but people who are in the venue, in the stadium, or outside the venue, people are really liable to being hurt. So there, these fire devices contain a lot of risk, and also because they're not manufactured with cautionary measures. I'm not as objective as I would like to, but this is a very complex issue. We don't have a mathematical form to solve this problem. One more question, please. So I can see somebody wants to ask a question over there. Last question. Good morning. My question is reflection, maybe. There were brilliant presentations from the panel. I'm talking to the Professor Daniel Seabra. I have a question. The casual for us police forces, as we're all lagging behind European fashion, so to speak. And we have seen that over the past few years, when England has already seen this phenomenon. We have more expression of it in Portugal. And what we can now see, I'm talking about a male universe mostly, but we see some 5, 10%, 15%, and sometimes even 20% female fans, young female fans. They have these designer clothes and dark clothes. They're generally groups that do not go beyond 40, 50 individuals. When loyalty to the club was the first thing, now we see loyalty, so to speak, to be in second place. And then you have the loyalty to the casual group. And then to the clerk. And when they begin their professional club, it comes first, but then you have the loyalty to these individuals, to these clerks. My reflection is what to do, what can, as society, as police forces, what can you do in terms of schools, for instance, with the presentation made by the Service of Security Information Security from SEAS. I mean, this is a frightening perspective, and because when young people are watching television and are online, they can be chatting with people that are even, people that are potential terrorists. Some of them are very young, others are not so young in these groups. And we should try to study and control the development of this casual trend. This is a question which is very difficult to be answered. That would that I could answer, but it would take partly, and it would take a very long time. So fans, loyalty to the club comes second plan, and it's loyalty to the group. So you have data, yes. You don't have data really, it's your perception, rather. They're not, can't be accepted as validity with. They're very loyal to the club, although they may harm it. But the problem is that it's a framework, it's a value reference. There's a film that explains not the casual phenomenon, but the skinhead subculture, which is "This is England." So there's repression attitudes. What can be seen as a crime will be subject to criminal procedures, to indictments. I can't say everything, but really, a lot of things were not very well done. I'm not going to expand on this, but I would like to say that we're paying basically, and in particular, in private, I can speak in more detail. We're paying for some errors on the part of the legislator. Some of the errors that were made now have consequences, because this media framework of the phenomena was not very well done. Let's go back to the thing that you're worried about. We have to understand. It's difficult to understand because they don't speak to people. They only speak among themselves. They don't speak to other people. We have to see the motivations, the reasons behind this kind of behavior, and try to demonstrate what psychologists call the resignificance. Outside that context, they realize it's wrong. When confronted with their actions, they know that it's wrong. And in terms of the values defended by societies and upheld by the rule of law, they understand it's wrong, they're wrong, those actions. So we should try to have a dialogue with the groups themselves that supporters are doing, and that has added value. The information that I've been provided, and I'm not going to expand on this, the spotters' work has avoided many of episodes of confrontation, and I have absolutely no doubt about that. And when there's confrontations, it's not the spotters that are to blame. It's because you can't blame the policeman who didn't catch the robber or the thief more than we condemn the robber or the thief. In the previous government set up a commission to study delinquent behavior of gangs and young people. Some of this violence has been incorporated into daily life, into the daily life of some people in society. I don't want to speak as an anthropologist, but in my university we had an observatory for violence in sports, and I talked to some teachers of physical education, and I posed a question. I would like to have a survey with a questionnaire and to understand if violence in sport is approached in the program of physical education, and if that issue is debated. And the overwhelming reply was, violence in sport is secondary, because we deal with violence in our daily lives. We can't have peace at sport if we have knives in schools. If we want a safe school and we don't seem to have it. Measures, I still think that some aspects of approaching the topic should be reversed, and I have my doubts that it's possible. I believe in a comprehensive approach, long pedagogical work with young people, because some of them are not young people. Some of them, there are directors in charge of institutions, important institutions, and I could go even further, that are involved in those, in that kind of behavior. I don't know if some civil servants are not casuals themselves. Thank you very much, Professor.
Já dei aqui uma tolerância grande.
I gave you a bit of tolerance, a bit of leeway. All the Professor Daniel Seabra, Officer Mário Botelho, Service of Information and Security. Let's change the panel very quickly, please.
Vamos trocar rapidamente para podermos avançar
so that we can move on to the second panel of the morning of sport as agent of social transformation.
Ora, muito bem. Vamos avançar para o
Let's
segundo painel
move on to
desta manhã,
the second panel of this morning. We'll be talking about sport as an agent for social transformation. And I would like to call to the floor Joaquim Escada from the Federation of Portugal's Handball, so Portugal's Handball Federation. Joaquim Escada.
Salva de palmas.
Round of applause, please.
Joaquim. Muito obrigado. Chamo também ao palco Hugo Rodrigues, o presidente do Seixal Clube
the president of Seixal Club 1925.
E ainda o
Paulo Casilli, the International Center for Sports Security. And for this panel, we were supposed to have Bushra Shada, a former athlete, but for reasons that we can't really explain, the athlete will not be coming. So this is the second panel this morning. Paulo, I know that you have a presentation. Paulo Casilli. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for, I would like to thank the organization for having invited me. I am manager of programs for national security, international security, rather, non-profit organization. Sport is a unifying force, an inspiring force, and this is our motto. And I take this opportunity to talk about what we've been. I won't be talking about security so much, but the role, the fundamental role of sport in terms of as a social transformation agent. First, I would like to talk about of the SCSS, the International Center for Sports Security, which works based on three pillars. Security in the organization of sport. We have been working with the government and Qatar to offer support in revision of policies and planning and preparation and training for civil servants. And we work with other international organizations to form administrators in security areas. Or, for instance, in other continents like the Africa Cup of Nations, and global program on security of major sporting events and the promotion of we also co-spear the global program on security of major sporting events and promotion of sport, but actually sums up what our organization does. And we also work with the UN Office for Counterterrorism. The second pillar is again working against match fixing, and we work with other organizations, agencies in the United Nations, drug agencies against UNESCO, for instance, but other European institutions like the Council of Europe, and to implement international frameworks.
Digamos que trabalhamos na área
We work on match fixing, and at European level we have we work with other agencies, not just so the UNDOC, but UNESCO, even UNICEF, but to talk in terms of integrity and protection of sport, notably with UNICEF in Brazil, for instance, within the World Cup protect children and young people against abuse of traffic, sexual exploitation, work exploitation, and the transformative power of sport is something, it's an engine for peace and development. And then we have an initiative which is Save the Dream, which is a global initiative created by CCSS to empower young people through safe access to sport, and we work and prioritize working in areas of crisis, and we work in countries like Somalia, Darfur, in Sudan, in Haiti. And we can say that when there is a dialogue, or when we have the beginning of a dialogue between the parts that are fighting through sport, that is really a move forward. It's a step in the right direction. We also have, we know that volunteers are really very important, so volunteer work is very important. So we have a platform of matching of people who are looking for opportunities, people who are looking for volunteers, and volunteers that so the prevention of radicalization of young people through, and so we try to prevent that through sport, and as that is also very important, that is really something that is connected with volunteer work. So to cash in on major sports events, to move in that field and avoid extremism attitudes. In the words of Nelson Mandela, sport has the power to change the world because it has the power to inspire, to unite. And so sport is, as we have sustainable development goals, that has to do with, of course, sport, and I'm going to focus mostly on two projects. It's the first one, it's Radical Exchange that tries to create a network of partners so that sport can be used as prevention of radicalization, can be a way for young people to join the community and work for the community, because young people are very vulnerable to radical ideologies. So so it gives them a feeling of belonging. Crossing the boundaries through sport is another program that has been in place and has achieved very good results.
algumas palavras sobre este Network for the Exchange of Good Practices for the Integration of Youngsters at Risk Through Sport, o Radical Exchange. Este é um projeto que nasce para dar uma resposta prática.
We have this program that tries to
locais
to give an answer to questions that our local authorities can't really have so much can gain so much attention to have the promotion of and avoidance of radicalization. So this network for the exchange of good practices or the integration of youngsters at risks is to respond to a question that very often institutions can't answer, can't deal with. For instance, in the Balearic Islands, for instance, it was implemented for 2 years. It's a consortium of organizations, and for instance, that has an International Olympic Truth Center in Greece, involves other partners like the University of the Balearic Islands in Spain, European Multisport Club Association in Belgium. So it's a way for people to get together, exchange good practices, and make proposals together. So put forward ideas, and there was a handbook that was written, and that incorporates all the good practices that were identified. And the role of a university in such a project gives scientific rigor to all the proposals that are made and then developed. To strengthen the network of local agents. A topic that nowadays is very that we cannot escape with the migratory phenomena, migrations, because there's a need to give a response to this migratory crisis, and because these migrants are protected by international law, and this phenomenon only tends to become more serious, and we have a legal and moral duty of tackling this challenge, because we have legal documents in place. This project, the Cross-Sport project, was thought that was as the participation of 4 partners. O clube do Sevilla Seville Club and the Lazio Foundation in Italy. We have a preparatory action of the European Union that can be replicated in other places. The project has come to an end. I mean, came to an end 2 months ago, but we're waiting for some replies, some feedback from the European Union. Because we have we're working in network, because we know that it's important to create this feeling of partnership through sport. This feeling of partnership is very important. There was a network that dynamized the ecosystem of sports and inclusion, and building a network through the cooperation of identification, association, and creation of focal groups, and NGOs and associations, clubs, municipalities were involved to have like a package, and now we have a package that is accessible for free on the Crossport website, and this was prepared to have two figures. We talk about security, but everything that we do in terms of is using sport and its power as an agent of change. We're not going to do this prevention, because prevention is essential, it's a prerequisite, so the other agents will have be up against fewer problems. So we have an educational package, we have the CLEAS training, which is a leader, a community leader for the inclusion through sports, CLEAS, that can manage, it can be a coach, can be a social worker, that are well equipped to use sport as a tool when there's the presence of people who are vulnerable, like homeless people, like migrant people. And the second one, and we also work with another module, which is activists for the inclusion through sport and agents of change. That in the different countries where the project was implemented, Spain, Portugal and Greece, where activists, pro-sport activists were identified, so that they can really make the community more dynamic in terms of sports. Even in the first contacts with hosting, with the incoming community. I would like to show you some photographs from the of this cross-sport project, sports and social inclusion. It's to think about the sustainability of these programs. We work with, we're negotiating with the Red Cross. So we're working with the municipality of Fundão, which plays a very important role. It's an example, a good practice at European level, for inclusion at European level. This is still being worked on. It's still in progress, and I'm concluding my presentation. It's awareness, raising awareness, it's very important at the level of the media, in the social media, in terms of the refugees and all the agents that are involved in that, the importance, the relevance of the sport in terms of the community, and helping migrants feel more part or included in the community if they all participate in sports. This is very important, because we should have other cooperation dynamics, because sport it's an essential instrument for social cohesion and social inclusion, so that we can protect our society. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Paulo. É uma imensidão de projetos, aqueles que foram agora mostrados. Joaquim Escada, vice-presidente da Federação de Handball de Portugal, tem que pensar sempre, porque senão sai sempre handball, a Federação Portuguesa de Handball, mas não é. Este projeto Handball for All tem 4 pilares
Portugal
fundamentais.
Handball Federation.
apresente-nos
So could you present to
este projeto.
This project?
E em que ponto é que ele está nesta altura?
And at what stage it is? Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to greet you all. A very special greeting to the Secretary of State and to the President of the ACPV. And I thank you for the invitation, and I would like to greet you for this excellent Congress and for the inclusion of this subject into this Congress, because we believe that sports is for everyone. And so we have a good project with 4 pillars, and after the law from 2007 that included the federations.
Isso é outro tema para outro congresso. Das incumbe às federações de ter a sua modalidade para todos.
So to have sports for everyone, and so we built this project under this premise. So all of those who can practice handball were included. Motor science, wheelchair handball, European champions. We'll show you some pictures afterwards, and I have a video with that team. Oh, there's the picture. So this picture is from the participation in Egypt. The first time that we participated in 4 against 4 handball, wheelchair handball.
O handball para a deficiência intelectual, o handball para a deficiência auditiva,
handball for deaf people, and handball in prison. And then we divided into 2. So handball for prisons and handball for in educational centers. I think that handball is extremely important, must be faced as a training, as a complement, as an extraordinary complement of young people's training, and that's what we did. So handball for all.
Temos de facto caminho
percorrido
imenso
very important path with excellent results even at international level.
Dizer que nada está,
and nothing, so we have a long way to go still, and we must continue to do work with our partners, with our institutional partners, IBDJ, and other partners, such as the Paralympic Committee of Portugal, the prisonal services, and others that help us throughout the whole country, the handball clubs, the schools, the municipalities. We are in Viseu, and Viseu has been an extraordinary partner, the municipality of Viseu, and so we must continue to go and in the rehabilitation centers, in hospitals, in the institutions, in order to take our work and to include more and more children and teenagers. And so the balance that you do at this point is very positive. Yes, very positive indeed. I was referring to what we have nowadays, and that's what we hear from our partner institutions, from people who work with us, the municipalities, local authorities that work with us, and so it's a project to be continued. And I am in the direction in the board since April, but there's a commitment and to all the projects, and so all projects are important.
Hugo, o Seixal Clube
1995
foi dado a perceber mais do que clube de
is
futebol,
more than a football
estas
club,
iniciativas
because
e
these
projetos
initiatives
sociais
and
que vocês
social
têm, como
projects
Bola
that you
Mágica,
have,
eventos
such as
comunitários,
Magical Ball,
apoio a
community
famílias
events,
carenciadas,
support
o
to
stop violência, isto
poor
faz com que,
families. So
não
this
seja
all
só clube
is not
esportivo.
only a
Há
sports
aqui mais,
club,
qualquer
there's
coisa.
more.
Quer explicar, quer partilhar
Would you like
com a
to
nossa
share, would you like
audiência
to
como é
explain
que
to
as coisas
us
se organizam?
how things are organized?
Não.
Cumprimento todo o painel.
I would like to greet the
também
members of the
todo o
panel.
auditório, quem
I would
nos
like to
assiste
greet
online. Permitam que faça um
the
cumprimento especial
auditorium,
ao Presidente Rodrigo
the ones
Cavaleiro
who are
e à
listening
extensível a
online,
toda a sua equipa
the
pelo
President,
maravilhoso trabalho
of
que têm
course,
desempenhado,
for the work he
não
has
só
been carrying out,
em toda a organização deste
and
congresso,
all the organizers of
também
this Congress.
é notório
It is quite obvious
surgimento da PCVD, no que diz respeito à prevenção e também no que diz respeito à sensibilização
and the
na
awareness
área da segurança no desporto.
in the field of security and safety in sports. I would like to tell you that Seychelles
É diferenciado, é clube
is
diferenciado.
a differentiated
A
club.
vida é uma escola.
Life is a school,
E dá-nos os melhores exemplos.
and it gives us the best
posso
examples.
dizer
And I
que
can tell you
o exemplo notório
that
que tivemos da
a
importância dos
notorious
clubes
example
e
of
do
the
movimento
importance of
associativo
clubs
foi
and
o pós-Covid.
associativism
Foi
was
o
post-COVID,
desporto, os
was
clubes
sports,
desportivos
the
que
sports clubs
trouxeram a normalidade
who brought
à sociedade.
normality
Fomos nós que
to
fizemos os testes aos
society.
nossos dirigentes,
We
semanalmente, aos
tested
nossos
our
atletas,
leaders,
com
our
apoio das
athletes on a
associações e
weekly
federações.
basis.
Fomos
We
difundor daquilo que foi a
disseminated
nossa retoma
the
à
comeback
comunidade
to the community
e àquilo que era antes do Covid,
and to
que
what
é,
it used to be before
a partilha
COVID,
de
the
emoções, de
sharing
saber estar
of
em convívio
emotions,
novamente. E também
and to be together once again.
retoma a atividade física.
And, of course,
Posto
going
isto,
back
dizer
to
que
physical
o Seychelles
activity.
é claramente
And so,
projeto
Seychelles
desportivo
is
social,
a social sports
Temos o nosso objetivo
project.
muito bem focado.
We have
Temos
our
uma guia
objective very well
onde nos une
focused.
todo o
We
processo
have
inerente a todo o clube, uma guia que nos une.
guidelines
Temos umas
that
frases que
unite
nós
us.
chamamos as
We
nossas
have our
frases
sentences
GPS,
that we call our
que quando há
GPS
desvio
guidelines. So
natural
whenever there's a
daquilo que é
natural
projeto,
detour
as
of what
frases
is a
GPS, nós
project,
temos ao
the
dispor para todos, e
GPS
trabalhar de pessoas para pessoas que nos
sentences
faz seguir
guide
sempre o
us.
foco,
And
que é o
so
mais importante no meio disto tudo, que são
that's the
as
most
pessoas.
important thing,
O
which
Seychelles
are people.
tem
Seychelles
realmente
has
ações sociais,
social actions.
algumas
Some of
parte
them,
delas programadas,
or some of them
são
are
aquelas
programmed.
ações
I'm
em
talking
que
about
os
the
nossos projetos
actions
sociais, o Bola
of
Mágica,
our
o Seychelles
social
Ativo, o
projects,
Stop
Magical
Violência,
Ball,
e também ações em que temos parceiros como
Stop
também faz a
Violence,
ICSS,
and we have
que
some
nos procuram
partners
para fazer projetos
De alguma
sociais.
that
forma, estes
sought, that looked for us.
projetos que vocês têm
So
são
some of these
projetos,
projects
que
are
são
projects which are complementary
clube desportivo
to
que
the
o
sports
Seychelles
club
é.
that Seychelles is,
clube é clube
right?
desportivo,
Yes,
temos a
Seychelles is
noção
a
disso,
sports
é lógico
club.
que
We are
estamos a
aware
formar
of that.
atletas,
We are
dirigentes,
training
e
athletes and
treinadores,
leaders
mas
and
também estamos a
coaches,
formar
but we are
cidadãos
also
para a vida
training
comum, não é?
citizens for common life.
Estava eu a dizer,
And
falei
so
das
I was
ações
saying,
programadas,
I
mas
talked
as
about the
mais
program
desafiantes
actions,
são
but the
as
most
espontâneas,
challenging
não é?
ones are the
Temos as ações
spontaneous
espontâneas
ones.
daquilo
We have
que é a força do
spontaneous
movimento
actions
associativo. E as
from the
espontâneas aqui são os
associative
casos
movement.
de
And I'm
emergentes
talking
da
about the
CPCJ,
emerging
também
situations
nosso
of
parceiro,
BCJ,
da Cruz Vermelha
of the
e
Red
da Santa Casa da
Cross,
Misericórdia,
of
que são
the
situações
Santa
que
Casa da
surgem.
Misericórdia,
Permitam também partilhar
and
aqui uma
I
ação
would also
espontânea
like
que
to
realça
share a
bem a
spontaneous
força do
activity
movimento associativo e reforça o movimento associativo, porque o nosso
is a
clube é
proof
voluntário.
of
Não
our
temos profissionais no clube, para além dos
associativism,
profissionais que fazem a
because
manutenção das
we
instalações.
are a volunteer association.
Foco aqui,
We don't have any
a
professionals,
força do movimento
and so I would
associativo.
like to
Eu vou partilhar
focus
aqui uma história.
on, I would like to share a
Há uns
story.
meses atrás, é uma
Some
história de
months
Seychelles, mas
ago,
podia ser
it's
uma história
a
de outro
story
clube
from
qualquer.
Seychelles, but could
Há uns
be
meses atrás,
from
força
any
do
other
âmbito do meu
club.
trabalho, exercício de
So,
funções, acompanhei
I,
a demolição de
I
construções de habitação
witnessed
precária.
the demolition
Estive a
of
acompanhar essas demolições, quer construções ilegais,
of illegal housing, and
você também é funcionário
because
da
you
Câmara
are
Municipal.
also an official of the municipality. Yes, I am. So I witnessed, and it's always a very difficult scenario as far as safety is concerned, but very difficult in the social field. We are talking about poor people living in precarious conditions, but that's the only roof they have above their heads. And an ex-athlete, and he was holding his mother because she was crying, because she was losing the roof over her kids' heads, and she did not have a way to transport her goods, her belongings to the alternative. And with a WhatsApp group that works very well, I shared this story, this need, and an hour later we had 2 vans of the club filled with volunteers who helped that lady to move her belongings to another home. And so this is an example. And so it was Seixal, and I say it again, it could be some other club to do it. Paulo. What are the next projects? So you presented a whole set of projects, lots of things in which you are involved. You talked about refugees, migrants, and so we have more and more refugees, more and more migrants, and sports as an agent in the transformation, in the social transformation. So what comes next? Well, what comes next is to continue in this path, so to continue in the network that already exists. And I was mentioning a little while ago, we created a network not only in Portugal, but in other countries.
É verdade, é projeto transnacional. É transnacional. E eu quero saber utilizar uma boa prática da Grécia.
How to use a good practice in Greece. I can have a contact in Greece. I can call directly to my contact in Greece and
realmente uma participação numa atividade.
Mas só para digamos, continuar, o que é
preciso fazer? É preciso levantar mais a voz dos refugiados.
We need to raise the voice of the refugees. And so it's important of the refugees because we are talking about specifically about the refugees and the vulnerable groups.
É preciso ir além, portanto, estabelecer a rede, criar código de conduta para os clubes, por exemplo. É desafio que nós muitas vezes podemos lançar e já estamos a tentar trabalhar nisso. Outro projeto, projeto seguinte que está a ser apresentado, ou seja, como é que os clubes podem,
how can federations can facilitate the access to sport for the refugees, which are people without papers, without documents, and don't have the access to sports practices. And so I'm sure that this would create some kind of trust in institutions and community to create this conduct guide,
também diretamente nos clubes de esportes,
also directly in sports clubs, so that everyone knows about them, and so that clubs know how to handle vulnerable people. And so it's fundamental, it's essential to keep on working on this with already created network, to create impact, to be able to give more opportunities, because we know very well that the social cohesion goes through the community participation, and only that participation from everyone we are able to get a more secure, a safer society.
Rodrigues, o Seixal faz 100 anos.
Rodrigues Seixal will be 100 years old. So what would you need to continue to develop these projects?
Estes projetos que vocês têm
These projects that you
desenvolvimento
have been
fazem ser
developed.
ao Seixal mais do que clube de futebol.
And
Da autarquia vocês têm,
so from the
imagino que
municipality,
tenham,
I'm sure that you have
apoio,
a support,
necessário, mas
the necessary
outros,
support.
que
What
outras,
kind
necessidades
of
têm?
other needs do you have?
O facto de sermos projeto
Well, the
desportivo
fact
social,
that
não
we
é?
are a
E não
social
podemos
sports
deixar de ter o
project,
foco social,
we
desportivo, traz-nos aqui dois problemas,
brings us
ou
two
duas
problems
duas
or two
situações em que temos que ter o
situations
foco.
that we
Não
must
podemos
focus
deixar
on.
de competir,
So
não é? E
we
aqui dos problemas que
cannot
temos
stop
internos, quando
competing.
digo internos,
And
tem a
so
ver
one
não
of the
só-
problems,
não com
internal
com a
problems
parte
that we
diretiva, mas
have,
com os associados, não é? Com os
that has
pais
to
dos
do with
atletas,
the parents of the athletes, with the
passar a
associates,
mensagem, não é?
is
É uma dificuldade de
to
passar a mensagem
make the
que
message go
não
through.
pode valer tudo para ganhar,
It's
e
very hard to do that.
necessitamos do apoio de
And so
todos
we need
para
the
fazer o
support
trabalho
from
social.
everyone
Por
to
vezes que é correspondido,
do
outra
the
vez
social
não é.
work.
Aqui o ónus que nós
The
temos é que por
onus
vezes
that
somos
we
apelidados
get
muito
is
de
that
clube social
sometimes
e a
we
parte
get
desportiva fica
called
pouco ao
a
lado.
social
Isso não é
club and
verdade.
the sports part is not as important, and that cannot be because the sports part is as important as the social part.
Lógico que se a nossa vertente fosse só o
It's
foco
obvious that
desportivo,
if our,
poderíamos ganhar mais vezes.
of course,
Mas
our
o facto de
main
estar aqui hoje é uma
part
conquista
would
para o
be
Seixal. É como ganhar
sports,
campeonato. Este
it would
convite
allow us to win more,
uma taça
but
para nós.
we are both, we are social and
Dizer que
sports.
estava a dizer que é
And I
possível
was saying
conciliar
that it's
os dois
possible to
campos. O
conciliate
Seixal é atualmente
both
campeão distrital
fields.
em
So Seixal
basquetebol, na
is
categoria
a
de
champion
sub-14,
in the
sub-16,
category of
e é
under
uma potência
14
de
in
formação a nível
basketball,
nacional no
and
basquetebol.
so
No futebol,
it's a
temos
reference in
registro engraçado de
basketball.
subida de divisão e conquista de títulos distritais. Isto é uma evidência de que
So
é
this
possível
is a proof
abraçar os dois campos.
that
A
it's
grande
possible
dificuldade, o
to
problema
have
maior
both fields.
em termos de
And then
subsídio.
we have
É difícil
a problem with
clube como o
subsidies.
Seixal, com poucos
It's
recursos
difficult
financeiros,
that Seixal,
conseguir
with
abraçar tantos projetos.
not a lot
Os
of
projetos são todos
financial
financiados,
resources
ou quase
to
todos financiados
embrace
por nós,
a lot of
exceto
projects.
aqueles que
The
temos
projects that we
parceiros.
have
Foi o caso
are being financed by
do
us.
que fizemos no Estádio do Bravo, em que há uma conjugação de
And sometimes we have a conjugation
partilha de
of
despesas. De resto,
expense
é o
sharing.
Seixal que
But the
financia os
rest
seus
is
próprios
Seixal that
projetos
finances
sociais. E neste
its
registro,
social
Então, e o
projects.
Benfica ao lado não.
And the
eles não dão
Benfica
uma ajuda
next
de
to
vez em
you,
quando?
do not,
Benfica
they don't help?
Ou é uma
Well,
espécie de eucalipto que secou tudo ao lado, à volta?
O Benfica é nosso
Benfica
parceiro
is
no que diz
our
respeito
partner,
ao
yeah.
scouting de atletas. O Seixal,
And as far as
fruto
scouting
também
of
do brilhante
athletes.
trabalho dos nossos
And it does a
treinadores,
wonderful
é dos clubes
work
que
with
mais
our
atletas
coaches.
fornece ao Benfica,
So we
nas
supply
camadas mais
athletes
baixas,
to
na fase dos
Benfica.
4, 5, 6 anos. E
We're
não me
talking
enganei,
about
4, 5, 6 anos,
4,
é o
5,
Seixal que mais
6-year-old
atletas fornece ao
children.
Benfica. Temos ali uma parceria
So we have a
nesse âmbito. De
partnership
resto,
with
não
Benfica,
surge nada, mas
but
é uma porta que
otherwise
pode ficar
nothing.
aberta.
But it's a
Se
door,
alguém do Benfica
maybe
estiver
it's
a ouvir,
open. If
que nos
someone
ajudem
from
nestes projetos
Benfica
sociais.
is listening
Muito
to
bem,
us,
excelente.
maybe
Até porque o Benfica
it will
tem a
help us
Fundação
out.
Benfica, que faz um bom trabalho nesse capítulo.
And Benfica does
Joaquim Escada,
a
a
good
mesma
work.
questão.
Joaquim Escada, the
É
same
que-
question.
Como é que olha para o futuro?
How
e
do
o que
you
é que
look to the
precisa para
future and
continuar a
what do you
desenvolver
need to continue
estes,
to
projetos,
develop these
nas
projects
prisões,
in prisons,
na cadeira de rodas,
in people in
também,
on
nos
wheelchairs,
outros dois capítulos,
and in the
deste
other
handball
two
para
chapters
todos.
of this
Nós não
handball
somos
for
aqueles que nos
all.
queixamos muito, até
Well,
porque
we don't
estamos
complain
na
a
linha da
lot
tutela.
because
E está aqui o Sr. Secretário de Estado e já afirmou
and the
várias
Secretary of
situações,
State is
e é uma
here,
prioridade
and he already said it. It's a priority.
do Sr. Secretário de Estado e nós aplaudimos e agradecemos de facto
And we thank
esse apoio.
for that support.
Nós concorremos a tudo o que vai evoluindo.
So
digamos
we
assim,
apply
o
for
que-
everything.
o que nos é permitido. Não nos queixamos de
And we
facto,
don't complain.
vamos batendo a todas as portas. O
We
que
knock
nós
on all doors.
precisávamos era de menos
And
burocracia.
what
menos
we would
burocracia para
need
chegar à
is
frente.
less red tape, is less
Eu dou
bureaucracy to reach
exemplo.
people. And I give
Viseu
you an
tem a
example.
participar este ano pela primeira
Viseu
vez, a sua-
participates for the
o
first
seu
time
clube de handball em cadeira de rodas
their
connosco,
wheelchair handball
para
club with
chegar
us. And in
até
order
ter um grupo de trabalho à
to
volta de
get
10,
to a
12
work
pessoas
group,
com deficiência
around
para integrar a
8, 10
equipa,
people,
nós andamos mais de meio ano
to
para
integrate the
fazer
team,
E por
we
isso, nesta
had
altura,
to
temos convite para vir a Portugal para ver ali o
work
Sr.
for
Presidente.
6 months.
Ontem almoçámos juntos para falar um pouco sobre isso. Tivemos reuniões há
And
pouco
I
tempo
see
sobre essa matéria. Nós
my
estamos a
colleague over
explorar,
there, we had lunch
algo em
yesterday,
conjunto, mas em
and
conjunto
so that together we could have those athletes to create a group. And so the fact that we have this starting point, we want to comprise everyone. If they cannot integrate this handball, they will go to other sports. But we must give them the opportunity. And so less papers, okay? Less bureaucracy, less red tape. And so we would like to reach people because many people are not living today because they had an accident, because they live on a wheelchair, because they have to use canes, or due to several reasons. They are not truly living in sports, provides and has this obligation, has this ability to make these people's lives a better life. And this data protection and this red tape stops from reaching more people so that they can start to do a sport sooner than later. And we want to get to the Paralympics in terms of handball. And so we want to have more people doing that sport, more potential people that want to do that sport. And we must level this situation. We must help each other to level this situation, because the sports system, the Portuguese one, is very well known. And then when we get to associations and clubs, we have many difficulties. Federations are okay, but then associations and clubs, we have a lot of difficulties. So it's a work that we must do. We must continue to build the sports system that we have implemented in our country. So we must take advantage of all this situation, but clubs must help us to do this job. Society as well. Society must do a work of data collection so that people can have this opportunity. I know that this is difficult because most of the people with disability, acquired disabilities, do not do a sport because there's not a huge percentage of sports in our country, and then there is not enough will to resume sport, and so we must continue to do our work with hospitals, in their rehabilitation departments, and with the physicians themselves. They know about this, about the importance that sports play a very important role for physical rehabilitation and for their insertion in society. And I apologize to the president of football association, federation, but I would like to talk about handball, and we could lead this process for sports to reach to everyone. There's a project, 12-year project to develop sports in Portugal. Let's see if it's not interrupted. I believe in it. Okay, let's stop here. We still have some time, but I would like to say a few words. To tell you. Well, I leave here with one more challenge for my team, for my club, because I learn a lot here, and I will take. We are a welcoming, inclusive club, and in our stadium we have a problem, one more problem. Our stadium has only a covered area.
violência então verbal há bastante. Nós separamos.
We have a lot of spoken violence, and we separate. So the visitants.
Não têm cobertura. E é difícil.
And we have a covered part. And we have another part which is not covered for the visiting fans, and it's very. I mean, it's not a good image that to put our rival fans to put them on a space which is not covered. So when it rains or when it's not nice, and so we would like to get to be financed so that we can build another covered area. And so we are working on that. Everyone is going to work to be able to overcome this problem. And we applied to PRID with that project of the building of a covered area for our rival fans. And maybe we will be able to get the help we need for that construction. Thank you.
Já não vai a tempo do Vitória de Setúbal,
well, thank you.
Pronto, tudo bem. Muito obrigado ao Joaquim Escada.
Thank you, Joaquim Escada, Hugo Rodrigues, Paulo Casili, and now we'll have a coffee break.
Coffee break está marcado para 30 minutos.
So we'll have about a half an hour, 30 minutes. So please, could you be back in 15 so that we can have the final part of our Congress? Thank you very much.
Ora, mais uma vez, já boa tarde.
Good afternoon. Because it's 12:25, I would ask you to go back to your seats in this final lap of our words. And this will end with the conversation, a talk with the Dr. Fernando Gomes, the president of Portugal's Football Federation. I was sports commentator at TSF, and Mr. Fernando Gomes phoned and asked me if we didn't want to be a partner in the Cup. In the league, and everything went on very well. And I think we became friends, been friends ever since. And my consideration for a major figure in the 21st century Portugal. Mr. Fernando Gomes will be not on a footnote, but in the main text. Dr. Fernando Gomes, it's my honor and privilege to welcome you. As we can say in football, I'm not going to be too pushy. I'm not going to. I hope that I'm nearly retirement. Thank you very much, Dr. Fernando Gomes. Thank you very much for coming. This event is towards more more security and in sports events. There's the elections are in sight, but Portugal, in this respect of welcoming and secure sports event, is something that make you in this topic. Do you think? Are you pleased? Are you happy? Good afternoon, first of all, and greeting Paulo Sérgio for that memory he has of the basketball league, and then back in '92 when I became basketball somebody was a manager, so to speak, in the port. And I would like to greet the APVC-PC in the person of Rodrigo Cavaleiro. I would like to greet him for this Congress, not only this, but also for the remarkable work that he has been carrying out for the prevention of violence in sport. I still remember, unfortunately, the reason that led to the establishment of this agency with the invasion of in Alcochete. One of the voices that could be heard was Portugal's Football Federation, and I suggested the establishment, the setting up of this authority. And people in this field have acknowledged that the setting up of this body has been, how important it has been, and its intervention always timely. And in sports policy, in terms of violence, in terms of security in sports events. And so I'll have to absolutely begin my intervention by greeting Rodrigo and his team because of their action to make sports events more secure, more attractive, so that families can come to the sports venues in this country. In terms of your question, I think that over the past 13 years that we're managing the Portugal's Football Federation, we have shown that it's possible to have safe sports events in Portugal, and if for nothing else, in this short period of time, we had 2014, 2020, and 2021. We had the League of Nations. We had the final of the female women's champion leagues, and then another final of the female women's champion league. And with all respect of all the others that were organized, what happened in 2020, during the pandemic period, we were faced with dramatic circumstances. We were living dramatic circumstances. And then in 2021 in Port, with the time for preparing of only 4 weeks, 4 short weeks, the final was to be held in Istanbul, and because of pandemic reasons and the COVID control and the practice in England, the decision was made that it was not going to be possible to be held in Istanbul, and the decision came to have it in Porto, and for the event to be held in Porto. It was the pandemic period with 2 English teams, with only 4 weeks for preparation, with the conditions in which we had, and with all the difficulties around the events in terms of security. Your team didn't really get much sleep. No, it wasn't possible. And I particularly remember that the intervention of police forces, security forces, with the Portugal's Football Federation was really in May 2021 May 2021 in Porto, where I mean, everything was done with in very difficult situation. Portugal's Football Federation had somebody who was really very dynamic, who secured internally an articulation with Marco D'Abreu, and who articulated with all the security forces, public security forces. If we need any more examples, the circumstances of those events themselves, from a global point of view, in terms of organization, we had 82 games last year, but we had all the European competitions, games that have been organized in Portugal have been extremely successful in terms of security, due to the bodies that organize them, but all the clubs, but also the federation, in terms of the Portugal's team, Portugal selection team, that in all the protocols we had with the security forces to make these events attractive and safe. When in December of 10th of December, when you were elected, on the 10th of December you were elected, what were your ideas to develop Portuguese football? So, 13 years later, you have managed to implement all the major objectives you had for Portuguese football. When in 2011, in September, I decided in a General Assembly and supported by the members, the application for the federation wasn't really. I had started in June 2010. We had only a little more than 1 year, and all the work developed was still at the beginning in terms of what the main goals were. Was a decision was not easily taken, lightly taken, to leave a project that I had devoted myself to entirely, and leave it in the initial states of the organization, of its organization. But frankly, even then, with so little time to prepare and to promote the event, in all due respect, I think the structuring aspect, most important structuring aspect was the creation of B teams could play in the second division. We had 6 teams in the second division of professional competition, and if we look back now, we have the notion of the 26 athletes that were present in this event in Poland, in Scotland, playing in Section A. 23 began their course in Diogo Dalot, Diogo Costa. It's easier to say who weren't present. Ronaldo wasn't present, Diogo Jota, and Rui Silva, I believe, the goalkeeper. All the others started their careers in terms of selection teams then. So this situation of applying for the for the federation, that I had skills, I had knowledge, that I thought, and I had a view of what the development of football in Portugal could become. And today, I still think that 13 years later, there's still a clear mark in terms of the legacy for the future that we're going to live in the Federation. And we, because there's no, I say we because there's no project that makes no sense when thinking about one person working alone. I had a very good team that supported me and really worked with me during these 13 years, that were with me from the very beginning, a group of professionals that worked in Portugal's Portuguese Football Federation in terms of marketing, the development of the intelligence service, of support to the fan, of technical areas. In an overall perspective, I can say that we were able to build an extremely highly professional team. Let me just conclude this. As a sports federation, we cannot stop thinking about that sports federation as its main goal the victories in sports events. In these sports events, and we have a list of them, and we know how many finals we had, how many titles were won. We're not world champions of futsal championships because we didn't achieve the last qualification, but we have we won the League of Nations Football 11. We had the women's section participate in 2 Europe championships from 16 to 2020. We were considered So what, from a sports point of view, let me interrupt you, sorry. What is the conquest that you think you didn't achieve? The one to be sub-21 champion of Europe. For everything that we have shown, all our skills and competencies, we really need of the title of champion of the world in 22. I had expectations that in the Euro 2024 we could reach the European title, and I thought that we had conditions to bring the title from the final. But we have to have awareness that sometimes, because of details, because there's a thin line between success and success, so that difference happened in 2016. It's a detail that sometimes means victory or not victory. The sub-21, we participated in 2 final championships of the European Championship in 2021. We didn't get to the final because we lost to Germany. from what has been our trajectory, our path in terms of sub-21, in terms of titles, what it is and should be of what happens in clubs and in the federation. Are phases of transition, but we have a higher goal, which is the main selection. Most of the players have been in the sub-21 and have been integrated in professional football. And I would like to call your attention to the fact that if we go back in time of what happened in Portuguese football after a generation that has come to an end, the gold generation of Figo, Rui Costa, that went through glorious times in Euro 2020 and the World Cup 2016. If we go back in time, that selection or the future generation have always been based on this generation that was coming to an end, and a generation that played the sub-21 championship in Holland, the generation of Nani, Rui Patrício, Moutinho, and there is a gap there. And after the B teams were introduced, when we had the sub-21 teams that played in the final in the Czech Republic, William Carvalho, João Cancelo, Bruno Fernandes, Mangadas, and had all the preparation work, although he didn't actually participate in the final. Bernardo Silva. There's the re-emergence of the Portuguese formation. So being champions of the world would be really the most important thing. And then we had the city of football. The futsal pavilion is going to be open to the public in November. In the new house of Canal 11, Channel 11. It's something that was born with you. Nobody in Europe has anything like that, as far as I know. Are you very happy with your achievements in that respect too? In terms of what I was saying of a sports federation, there are pillars that are absolutely basic. A sports federation has to follow, because it's a sport, has to achieve sports success. We need all a work of planification, sustainability that leads to those successes in sport. And for us, it was absolutely clear, crystal clear, that we needed a sports infrastructure that was helping the selections where all the teams could practice in final games. And so from the very beginning, we signed the protocol to begin the works in the football city in September 2012. We took office, and one of our first decisions was to try to find a space to build the city of football. I remember a particular incident, but real, that space where we have the city of football today. We thought that could be, we had doubts if it was big enough to really have the city of football built there. And we went, some of our Some of us went there and took measurements, and then we signed the protocol. Because that space belonged to the Portuguese state. It was used once a year as a parking space for, so it wasn't really being used in a right way. So we decided it was going to be there in November 2014. We began the construction of the City of Football. And so it took 17 months to be built, and then we expanded for the House of Athletes, and then for a provisory facilities for 11, and then for Channel 11, and we have, in the second phase of the House of Athletes will be completed in April, May of next year. Investment. This investment, from a global point of view, will go beyond 70 million euros. Didn't get any support, any financial support from the state. The state did not participate in any financial measure whatsoever. We had some programs from FIFA and UEFA, and everything else was our own funds, self-financing, to pay for the project in its entirety. And we're completing this phase with this global investment without any debts that could be a burden on future generations. The importance of this legacy in terms of infrastructure, so that we can have our activity developed. It's important to have a vision. It has to do with the vision we want. We have futsal and not just football 11. We had and we were champions of and it's the basis of the pyramid. We have, our financial resources are limited, and we have reached some level of excellence. Football 11, training football, futsal, beach football too. We won prizes, and we have been in the World Cup and in 2 European Championships. It's something that is completely extraordinary for such a small country, and to have the level of competitiveness, for instance, in the World Cup, and it's recognized, acknowledged by our partners. It has a lot to do with what we've been doing with the for instance, women's teams. We had 2 or 3, sub-19, the main one, and sub-17. It's from selection A to sub-13. So all this work was based on what was for us a definition of expanding the basis of the pyramid. It's really with pleasure and a sense of pleasure that our basis has been expanded. We had two years of pandemic, and after 1 year we had already recovered after a year or so. We're growing by 13 to 14%. So this growth has to do with girls that women and girls that plays football. And this has been really the success, has to do with the success of our federation in terms of our international games. We have 2 minutes. You have a bit more than 2 minutes. And it's, I'm not going to be very strict, because let's expand a bit, because I'm in control of time, actually. You talked about your team. There is a fact that we can't deny, which is individual. It's you. You have been respected in all sectors of football, and by FIFA, you're respected by FIFA. Is that where you think that how things will remain? In 2023, after my second term in office, because I was over 70 years old. I'm over 70 years old. I couldn't really I couldn't be in the executive. I couldn't be in the executive board. So I'm member of the executive board of FIFA, and I'm going to go on regardless of being chairman of the federation or not. And because of that, I'm representing European federations in FIFA. I also participate in the executive committee of UEFA, and I'll still be in office, although being the president of Portugal's football federation. That path I've been treading when I was a member of the executive committee, 1.5 years of being president of the federation, has to do with my past as a Porto Football Club president, chairman, and had to do with the international forum that I was in. I was the European Association of Clubs that was created in 2008. And because of that period that I participated, when I participated in those fora, I had people that really I could work with, people that liked me. And when I was elected chairman of the federation in 2011, made it possible for me to integrate the bodies of UEFA in 2013. But you couldn't do that without being very competent. It has to do with the work. You can't see things in isolation. Individual knowledge has to do with collective work that underlies it. So things are interconnected, and there's nobody who on his or on their own can have really success without having people behind them, that a quality team that support them within a particular idea or a perspective in terms of football, because you can't do without team. Until 2027 you'll be in FIFA. You've been asked to be the chairman of the Portugal's Olympic Committee. You haven't accepted. Would you like to be president of COP? That's a problem, because I was asked, I was approached And during this period, I didn't have time to really think about it. The last 2 months have been very intense in terms of competitions and meetings, both in UEFA and FIFA. And so my aim is to complete what the 2 or 3 major pillars of this final phase of our term is World Cup 2030. So in the Congress of FIFA, it's going to be decided in December, 12th of December, if I'm not mistaken. So it's being assessed. I had a meeting with FIFA yesterday to have the dossier, the files ready. It's the third phases of the City of Football with building of the arena that will be open to the public in November, and launching the 4th phase of the House of the Athletes. And we have all those concerns in addition. So you don't rule out that possibility. I do not exclude it or include it. I have still my final actions as president of the federation have to be carried out to that term, and we still have some time. But would you like to be? I'm a man of the sport that everybody knows. I began in basketball when I was, and I 13 years of practice, and I played at the highest level of football when I was 18 years old. I decided to leave sports activities because I had a very intense professional life, and I couldn't be associated with sport. And then I, together with some mates of mine, to manage the basketball section of football in Porto, of the in Porto Football Club. So maybe I could play other kinds of sports like volleyball, for instance. But I'm really attracted to sports. It's an evaluation if with my action, that's my main objective, if I can, if my knowledge, my experience, I can bring something positive to the organizations to which I belong. And the same thing happens here. If I have skills, I have knowledge, if I can do a good work and I contribute positively for an organization or not.
Last question. How would you like the country and the Portuguese fans remember you? This is a classic question to people who are leaving. Well, I would like to be remembered as someone who did something positive for the country, because in fact, in terms of acknowledgement, universal acknowledgement of the Portuguese Federation of Football and the Portuguese football, that's a fact. Even today on Instagram it's the World National Federation with more followers. And so it's a reference concerning the sports federations. All of them want to know about the knowledge of the Portuguese Football Association Federation. And 2 weeks ago, the French Federation made the decision of creating the Sub-23 Championship, which is our Revelation League. And in order to provide an answer to the low B teams in League Two. As you know, we created Sub-23 that somehow have potentiated the balance of the clubs where they are created. Beto from Portimonense was transferred, started in under 23, and he is now going to Juventus. And that decision from the French Federation had a lot to do with the visit that they made to our Cidade Futebol and to the Portuguese football, where it was explained the model that we developed regarding the evolution of clubs. And a very clear word, if this path of the Portuguese football, I must mention the regional associations, the clubs, the players, the coaches, the local authorities, many times forgotten, but the support that the local authorities are as far as the development of the Portuguese sports are. And so that idea of leadership, of example that the Federation has won in the world of football, well, makes me very happy. And the acknowledgement which is done in international terms and national terms is done this way. So someone who contributed for the assertion of Portuguese football, not only nationally but internationally. So you are aware that that the expectations are high. Well, but they can be overcome, I'm pretty sure. And so the threshold can be overcome and can be surpassed. And so I hope that people continue, that Portugal keeps having successes and progression within the objective. And in a close, very near future, if possible in 26, we can win the world title, because, well, that's the only thing that we don't have yet. Thank you very much, Fernando Gomes, President of the Football Portuguese Federation. Paulo, let me just mention something which is extremely important. Many times people think that things come out of nowhere, but there's a lot of work behind. So, taking advantage of the pandemic, we did a strategic plan 2030, and one talks about people planning, but if there is a thing that lacks in our country regarding vision for the future, we did that strategic plan in 2021 during the pandemic, and we presented it in 22 and started its implementation in 23. And this strategic plan has to do with what I said before, the importance of the sports physical activity since an early age. If there is a project in terms of future vision and will have consequences for the future, I have no doubts, it's our project Superkinos. So we did a pilot experience in 44 schools in the 22 regions of this country with lots of students. The scientific evidence collected in those 3 months of the increase of the physical capacity of children in terms of sports practice. And we also had an intervention at the level of fair play and other actions which have to do with violence, because it's at school that one must have that, must do that kind of intervention, so that evidence, that scientific evidence led us, so Portuguese Football Federation to start this project, which started on September 23. So in 23-24, this program was in 292 regions in Portugal, in 600 schools, involving over 35,000 students, and we ourselves trained over a lot of teachers. And I would like to thank for the work of Professor Neto, who helped us with this program. Today, we have enrolled to participate in this project for 24-25. Almost every region. We had already 292, and we have more now. We have practically 308. We will have 1,200 schools involved in this project, from 6 to 10 years old, involving over 70,000 students, girls and boys. So these spaces concerning the planning, the involvement of what is and should be sports in Portugal, makes me very grateful, regardless what happened in assertion, to be able to contribute for the future generations of Portugal. Thank you, Fernando Gomes. Please don't leave your seats, because we will have the final part of this Congress. As far as I go, it was a pleasure for me having been here, and thank you for the invitation. I hope I did not make many mistakes. Thank you.
E eis que chega momento de grande reflexão,
we got to the
mas
big
de sentida
reflection
partilha,
moment,
momento
and
de
to share
enaltecer,
things. So
mas
it's
também de
time
agradecer.
to
É
thank,
chegado o momento da atribuição
time
dos troféus de distinção de
to give
mérito da
awards
ABCVD.
of merit from
Importa reconhecer e distinguir o
It's
trabalho
important to
desenvolvido
acknowledge
por aqueles que se
and
preocupam,
award
que se
the
importam,
work
que fazem a
to
diferença
those who make the
e que nos
difference
inspiram
and that
num
inspire
desígnio que nos
us
une a todos. Tornar os espetáculos desportivos mais seguros,
make sports
inclusivos e
events more
acolhedores.
inclusive, more
Há
welcoming
projetos que
and
transcendem o
safer.
desporto,
There are
que
projects
tocam o
that go
coração de
beyond
comunidades
sports, that
e
touch the
transformam
heart of
vidas.
communities
Hoje,
and transform
reconhecemos
lives.
projeto que comprova
Today,
que o
we
desporto
acknowledge,
pode e
we
deve
award a
ser para
project
todos, sem exceções. Numa
that sports
iniciativa que
must be
promove
to
também
everyone, in
valores
an
como
initiative that also
respeito
promotes
e
values such as
solidariedade,
respect and solidarity,
demonstra-se que todos podem vivenciar
all
forte
can
espírito de
live
equipa,
a
a
strong
emoção do
team
jogo e a
work
satisfação da
and the
superação.
satisfaction.
Falamos do projeto
We are talking
Handball
about
for All.
the
Esta
project
ação
Handball for
exemplar
All.
da Federação de Handball
This
de
comes
Portugal
from the
é uma lição
Portuguese
sobre inclusão
Handball
e
Federation,
igualdade,
and it's a
mostrando como a
lesson
força do
to
desporto
equality,
pode
showing how
derrubar
the strength of
barreiras
sports
e
can
unir pessoas.
overcome obstacles and
Criado em
unite
2010
people.
e composto
Created in
por 4
2010 and composed
subprojetos,
by 4
handball em
subprojects:
cadeira de rodas,
handball in
handball
wheelchair,
para
handball
deficiência
for
intelectual,
intellectual
handball para
disability,
deficiência
handball for
auditiva e handball para cidadãos
auditive
privados de liberdade.
disability,
O
and
handball
handball for
é a
prisoners.
prova
Handball
viva
for all
de
is
que o
the
desporto
living
pode
proof
e
that
deve
sports
ser
can
acessível
and
a
must be
todos.
accessible to
É com
everyone.
grande honra
It's
que
with
hoje
a great
atribuímos
honor that
uma
we
distinção de mérito à PCVD
give
ao
a
projeto
merit award
Handball
to
for All, projeto
ABCVD
extraordinário que nos
for the
inspira a
project
acreditar
Handball
num
for All.
desporto mais inclusivo e humano.
It's a more
Parabéns a
inclusive
todos os
sport,
envolvidos
a more
nesta
human
incrível iniciativa.
sports. Thank you, all the people who have worked on this project.
Campeão da Europa e campeão do mundo de handball em cadeiras de rodas, triunfo claríssimo sobre os Países Baixos por 18-10 em Leiria, e Portugal vence a primeira edição desta competição, organizou com brilhantismo e venceu. Parabéns a Danilo Ferreira, parabéns a estes 14 atletas que tão bem dignificaram o nosso país.
E para receber a distinção, convidamos
And to
a
receive
subir
the
ao palco
award,
o
we would like to
vice-presidente da
call to the
Federação de Handball
stage
de
the
Portugal
Vice
e
President
impulsionador
of the
deste projeto,
Portuguese
Dr. Joaquim
Handball
Escada.
Federation,
O Presidente da Autoridade
Joaquim
para a Prevenção
Escada.
e Combate à Violência no Desporto convida o excelentíssimo Sr. Secretário de Estado do
And
Desporto,
we
Dr.
invite
Pedro
the
Dias,
Secretary of
para fazer a entrega
State
desta distinção de mérito.
for Sports, Pedro Dias, to give this award.
Bem, mais uma vez, muito boa
Once
tarde.
again, good afternoon.
Não é fácil,
It's not easy,
mas vou tentar
but I will try
agradecer o mínimo.
to thank
Aquilo que viram ali
what you saw, what you watched on the video.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you.
Aquilo que viram ali é um
So
momento
what you
extraordinário.
watched is an extraordinary moment.
Cereja no topo do bolo de um trabalho.
It's the cherry on top of the cake, and so I would like to thank, on behalf of the Handball Portuguese Federation,
E de todos, porque isto é um troféu.
and
Obrigado.
and everyone, because this is a trophy.
Meu grande amigo.
Thank you, Rodrigo, my dear friend.
Isto demonstra que, de facto, as pessoas estão
This shows
muito
that
atentas ao
people
desporto nacional.
pay a lot of attention
De facto,
to
aquilo que
national
disse há
sports,
bocadinho
and what I
extremamente
said a little
importante.
while
O
ago
desporto
is extremely
deve ser para
important.
todos,
Sports
devem
must
ser
be for
dadas todas as
everyone.
oportunidades a toda a gente de praticar
Opportunities
desporto.
must be given to
O desporto é
everyone because
fundamental
sport is
para
fundamental
a
for
vida de todos.
the lives
E
of
por isso,
everyone.
isto, como disse o
And
Dr. Fernando
so,
Gomes, estive
just
muito
like
atento às
Fernando
suas
Gomes
palavras e, de
said,
facto,
I paid a lot of
partilho
attention
da
to
sua
his
ideia
words,
de
and I
que
agree
ninguém
with him
faz nada sozinho.
that nobody does
este
anything alone.
projeto
And this project
é um projeto da Federação
is
de
a
Handball de
project
Portugal, acarinhado
by
desde a primeira hora
the
pela
Federation,
várias
by the
direções
Portuguese Handball Federation, supported
que
by
dirigiram a Federação,
by
mas
everyone,
também é de todos os colaboradores,
but
diretos do projeto de
from
handball
all
de todas as
collaborators,
associações
all
regionais,
the regional
de todos os
associations,
clubes participantes
all the
neste
clubs
projeto, de todos os
which
treinadores,
participated
de
in this
todos os
project, all the
atletas,
coaches, the athletes,
de todos os dirigentes,
the leaders,
e por
the
isso é todos estes.
and so this trophy belongs to all of them.
Mas eu gostaria
But I would like
de dizer,
to tell you,
e é essa a reflexão que eu deixo, isto tem que ser de muitos
this
mais.
has to
Aquela
be much more.
pirâmide que foi
So that
aqui
pyramid
referida, a base
that was
da pirâmide
referred,
que foi
so
referida em relação ao futebol
the bottom of the
nacional,
pyramid
nós
regarding
também
the
o queremos
national
fazer
football, we also want to
relativamente
do it
ao
regarding
desporto para todos.
sports
E
for
ao desporto,
everyone and
especialmente
sports
para as pessoas
especially
com
for
deficiência.
people
E por
with
isso temos que
disabilities.
ter
And so
a
we
colaboração
must
de
have the
todos que estão aqui
collaboration
presentes
from those who are
para
here
que
present,
depois
so
este,
that
aliás, este
later,
troféu já é vosso também,
and this trophy is
para
yours
que
as well,
estes
so
troféus
that these
possam ser alargados
trophies can
ainda
be
mais a toda a gente
for
que esqueci-me
everyone.
aqui
And I forgot
de uns parceiros
about some partners,
espetaculares,
about some
quem é
wonderful
devido também
partners,
aqueles resultados internacionais que são as autarquias.
which are local
As autarquias
authorities.
são a base
Local authorities, municipalities are the
da
basis,
sustentação
are the
do
support
desporto no nosso
of
país.
sport
E
in
por
our
isso
country.
temos que
And
ter
so
mais gente
we must
também a
have
partir do
more
trabalho
people
conjunto com as autarquias
by
para
working
podermos
together with local
eventualmente
authorities to be able to
atingir outros resultados
other
internacionais.
international
No handball,
results.
que hoje
And
estamos aqui a
handball,
falar,
we're talking about
em nome
handball,
do handball,
and I thank
mas
you on
também
behalf of
em todas
handball.
as outras
But
modalidades.
in all other
Temos
sports,
grandes capacidades
we have
para
big
isso.
capacity,
Temos
big
grande
abilities
força
to do
interior e
that.
grande
We
vontade
have a great
de
inner
desenvolver
strength
trabalho
and will
também
to
nesta
develop
área. E por
work in
isso
this
vamos
field.
ter outros
And so
também,
we will have
juntamente
others
com todos estes que eu referi,
together
mas também com
with
as autarquias
the rest
do
that I referred
do
to,
nosso
but
país,
also with the local
conseguimos,
authorities of our country, we will be
estar
able
com mais pessoas
to
e
have
dar-lhes
more
essa
people
oportunidade
and
para
give them this
Muito
opportunity
obrigado
to do
a
sports.
todos.
Thank you
Eu vou-vos
all.
pedir desculpa, eu vou
I'm
ter que
going
me
to
ausentar,
apologize.
porque
I have to
tenho
go
que estar em
away. I have
Lisboa
to
por
leave
volta das
because I
4
have to
horas.
be in Lisbon
Mas não
at
queria
4
também
p.m.
deixar
But I would like
de dar aqui uma palavra
to
a uma pessoa que tem estado nas
say
nossas
something to
televisões
someone
constantemente,
who has been in our TVs
mais do que quando era
on a
praticante.
regular basis, much more than when he
mais
used
do
to
que
do
quando era
sports,
praticante, mas que tem sido um exemplo,
but who has been an example.
para os mais jovens,
An
e é
example
desse
for the
exemplo que
young
nós precisamos
people,
para-
and we need
para
those
ter
examples
cada vez mais jovens a praticar
to be
desporto.
able to
Falo,
get
como
more
devem
and
já
more
ter
young people.
dado
I'm
conta,
talking about
Cândido Costa. Grande
Cândido
salva de palmas.
Costa. A big round of applause for Cândido Costa.
Muito obrigado em nome do handball.
Thank you on behalf of handball.
E é com emoção que continuamos, até porque
And we
hoje
continue,
celebramos também
and because
programa
today
que nos
we
leva numa
celebrate
jornada
a program
única
which takes
pelo
us
mundo do
on a
futebol,
soul
que vai
path
muito
in the
além
world
das
of
quatro
football that
linhas,
goes
onde o desporto
beyond
se
the
cruza
pitch,
com histórias
where
de
the
vida,
sports crosses
superação
with
e
stories of
paixão.
life, separation
Desde
and passion.
2019,
Since
guia carismático
2019,
permite-nos
a
conhecer
charismatic
aldeias,
guide
vilas
allows
e
us
cidades
to
em que o futebol
know
é
cities,
vivido com uma
villages,
paixão
towns
pura
where
e
football
genuína,
is lived
em que
with a
cada
pure,
episódio
genuine
é uma
passion,
janela
in
aberta
which
para a alma das
every
comunidades
episode is
locais,
an open
e onde
window
o desporto
to
se
local
mistura
communities,
com a
and
cultura,
when
a
sports
tradição
is mixed
e a
with
vida
culture and
cotidiana.
tradition and daily
Ao longo de
life.
várias
Throughout
temporadas, o
several
programa não
seasons,
foca
the
apenas o jogo em
program
si,
does not
mas
focus
as pessoas
on
que
the
o tornam
game,
especial.
on the mat,
A
on the game
alegria de uma
itself,
vitória,
but
a
on the people who make
resiliência
it
após uma
possible,
derrota
the
e a
resilience
união
after a
que se forma
defeat,
em cada campo de
the
futebol,
happiness after a
num palco
victory,
para a ética,
and so
o
stage to
respeito
ethics,
e convívio
respect,
salutar.
and
A capacidade
hanging out,
imensa de
and so
humanizar
the
o
huge
desporto
capacity
e
of
promover a
humanizing
não
sports and to
violência,
promote
realçando
the
os valores que
non-violence,
unem,
stressing
em
the
completa oposição
values
a discursos e
and
comportamentos que dividem. É o que
against
torna este projeto
behaviors
tão
that
relevante.
divide. That's
O
what
programa
makes this
Cândido on
project
Tour
so
apela ao melhor de
relevant.
cada um
The
de nós
project
e ao melhor que o
Cândido
desporto
on
tem
Tour
para
is the
oferecer,
best that
influenciando
sports can
positivamente
offer, influencing
uma
in a
larga
positive way
audiência.
a large
Por esse
audience.
motivo,
For that
a
reason,
APCVD tem o prazer de
APCVD
atribuir uma distinção de
awards a
mérito
merit
ao programa
distinction
Cândido on Tour
to
do Canal
the
11
program
e da
Cândido on
Federação
Tour of the
Portuguesa de
Channel
Futebol,
11 and the
apresentado
Portugal
por Cândido
of the
Costa,
Portugal
que com o seu humor e a forma
Football
simples e
Federation
genuína de
and
contar
Cândido
histórias,
Costa,
tem
that
iluminado
due
o lado
to
mais
his
humano
wonderful
e
way to
inspirador
tell
do futebol.
stories
Parabéns
has
à
made
equipa
football
e, claro, ao
a
Cândido
very human
por nos
thing.
guiar
Congratulations
nesta
to the team
viagem tão
and to
especial.
Cândido for having guided us in this wonderful journey. Thank you.
Nossas meninas.
Olha ali à frente.
Quais são os sons do pastor?
Como?
O futebol é uma paixão. Nós adoramos o futebol. Porque o futebol apresenta-nos algo de fundamental na sociedade, que é sermos coletivos.
Solta aí, rapaziada, vamos embora. O Campo da Pereira.
Eu adoro gerir.
Não estou. Tens o sotaque mesmo da pova, não tens?
Com muito orgulho, porque pertenço à classe pescatória.
Vinha com 10 anos para aqui, hoje estou com 35.
Do fundo do coração, foi o momento mais bonito que eu tive na minha vida a fazer isto.
O que levamos na vida do futebol é a bondade e as amizades que criamos no
Joga! E ao final do dia, quem ainda não percebeu o que é de Dom Artur nunca vai perceber. Antes era só um homem bonito, agora são dois homens bonitos. É o Sr. Manel e o Sr. Abulho. Não se aprende nada aqui.
E para receber a distinção, convidamos a subir ao palco o Presidente da Federação Portuguesa de Futebol e, por inerência, Presidente do Conselho de Administração do Canal 11, Dr. Fernando Gomes, e o apresentador e rosto do programa, Cândido Costa. O Presidente da Autoridade para a Prevenção e Combate à Violência no Desporto convida o excelentíssimo Sr. Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Viseu, Dr. Fernando Ruas, a fazer entrega desta distinção de mérito.
To give away this merit distinction.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
Sou mais soltinho quando estou na rua.
I'm a bit more at ease on the street.
Programa meu, portanto, é programa da Federação Portuguesa de Futebol, do Canal 11.
Canal 11, we have a very good football program. Channel 11.
A minha autenticidade, a minha genuidade.
That shows my authenticity. I'm part of a team that have excellent professionals, and they sometimes activate the program because it's not a one-man show. But the main goal is to highlight the football that unites, that protects, that brings people together.
Nas realidades que eu ando
that
do que golo.
Than just goals.
O futebol do balneário se transforma
where changing rooms become a place where you sleep, or the bar becomes not in days where there are events where people come to eat. In a time like today when I'm really exposed, when I do a lot of things, but what I really like to do is Candid on Tour. This football, this kind of football is the basis of everything. I cry a lot on Candid on Tour. I cry because I'm happy. But receiving this award from the hands of my president,
tem significado muito forte para mim porque
this has a very deep meaning for me, because with me I bring a lot of people and I see many faces, lots of episodes. I can see that in my mind of people who are just anonymous people, but that work towards associations. And sometimes football is something that make people leave the telly after being a football player, being exposed to other situations, and to represent and uphold a cause, to give to people other opportunities and some amusement. And it's what I do best. And this is very consistent. And this award is for me. So people notice that it's more than just telling jokes, or because the Federation and Channel 11 are worth this distinction. We're very proud of what we have done, but we trust that we can go forward. I was awarded something that was very commented on, a lot of likes. But this is really, really overwhelming. Thank you very much, and I promise to continue.
E porque estamos a entrar na reta final,
and
pedimos
because
que
we're
suba ao
nearing
palco
the
para a
end,
sessão
we
de
call to the
encerramento
floor
o excelentíssimo
the closing
Sr.
session,
Secretário
the
de Estado do
Secretary of
Desporto, Dr. Pedro
State
Dias.
for Sport, Dr. Pedro Dias.
Muito boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
Excelentíssimo Sr. Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Viseu,
Mayor of Viseu,
todos os presentes.
and I would like to greet everyone else.
Nada melhor do que o momento como vivenciamos esta manhã.
This morning we really had very emotional moments and very lively moments. I have some words here, but I think
não podia deixar de fazer aqui uma
I had to refer briefly to these final moments, notably to what they make us feel, what they convey to us, and the message that was communicated by the President of the Portugal's Federation of Portugal and the Handballs Club Federation President are really overwhelming. In 1.5 days when we talked about security, and safety in sports events, in sports venues. These are the positive messages.
De uma forma positiva,
in a very interesting way and positive way can help us change society. And I think that sport can really help change society for the better. And with happier people.
Estamos a encerrar a segunda edição do
This is the second edition of S4 Congress.
Que excedeu, no meu ponto de vista, positivamente as nossas melhores expectativas.
That is organized by the APCVD. It was important to be here and listen to all the presentations, excellent presentations, the interest of the topics discussed here, the professionalism of the people who came here and shared their ideas with us, the proposals for the improvement of situations in sports venues, of the situation of stakeholders, and this is something that we have to go on doing. As I mentioned yesterday, we all agree on something. And after all the speakers, in terms of the reference to the St. Denis Convention, is the only legal binding document that has to do with sports organizations. This is a legal instrument that you have available, that we should favor to change and improve on the experience of fans. And this has to be on our agenda all the time. The interest of the countries on the Council of Europe in the strengthening of this international cooperation through the St. Denis Convention, as it was said it was mentioned in the meeting of the Ministers of Sport, European Ministers of Sport in Matosinhos. We should have a holistic approach to sports events, giving relevance to protection, security, and service. And then we'll be closer to affording fans a cozier, so to speak, environment, a safer environment in sports venues. Sharing experiences for instance, last year in Germany was a very interesting moment in terms of these stadiums and 10 stadiums and 10 cities in sports venues, and to have one commanding officer in all areas was something that we remember clearly. The World Cup in 2026 will be held for the first time in 3 different countries, Canada, Mexico, and the United States, and the challenges in terms of security will be bigger when we have, they're always big, but when they comprise 3 different countries, it's really a huge task. It will be an opportunity for Portugal, and in this area and in other areas, for the organizing committee of 2030. Let's wait for the decision in December so that Portugal, Spain and Morocco can organize the World Cup. And we draw lessons and learn lessons from the experience of the United States, Canada and Mexico. So the connection between and contact and the promotion between rival fans is important, something that I've learned. The importance of empathy in our relationship with supporters, to be closer to supporters, that was also mentioned by security forces. The investment in security should be an investment in creating conditions so that the fans' experiences and other participants can be extraordinary. Olympic values and sports values are examples of the good practices, and that was something. Sérgio from Sérgio, Paulo I, Paulo II, Monteiro, Pedro Monteiro, Bárbara, was something that really taught us a great deal. I know Miguel Monteiro, Miguel Vieira very well. And in Bárbara Timo, I've also followed her developments, and what they convey to us here is a message, an idea that we should bear in mind when we talk about sports. They're elite athletes, but they are the representatives at a certain level, which is a level of excellence, and manage the 3 of them to in two ways in life. They took their university degree, they won medals in world championships, in Europe championships, at world level, so they're a fine example of what you can do to reach this level in our country. So 1 in 10,000 people who practice sports reach this level. But this is something that we should always think about. Mr. Fernando Gomes says that our associations, our sports federations render an important service to our societies in terms of sports practice throughout life.
mas é parte
it's
de processo.
Elite athletes are very important to our country, but it's something that takes a long time.
Tem que ser consequência
It's a
da qualidade desse
process.
processo que
It
nós
has to
temos,
do with the quality of the sports training that we can provide to our athletes to have the highest expression in terms of achievements.
Para Portugal,
it's an honor for Portugal to welcome events of great quality like this one was. Organized by APCVD. Rodrigo Cavaleiro, thank you very much. Thank you to the municipality of Viseu and its support for the initiative and supporting this initiative. And the Polytechnic Viseu, the panel of the speakers, to the representatives of the sports associations and organizations that had food for thought, all the different organizations, private and public. Thank you very much for your participation, which was decisive for the success of this event.
E para nos deixar umas últimas palavras, pedimos que suba a palco o anfitrião de Viseu, Cidade Europeia do Desporto, o Sr. Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Viseu, Dr. Fernando Ruas.
Dr. Fernando Ruas, the Mayor of the City of Viseu.
Muito boa tarde.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief.
Normalmente começam os políticos.
But that's how politicians generally start. But I will be brief. I would like to greet the Secretary of State, Fernando Gomes, Chairman of the Fernando Gomes, and all everybody in the audience, and to thank you for this opportunity. And to give me the opportunity to be present in this giving out of the awards, because we're running late, and I know that.
Seguramente a toda a gente
que o distingue,
mas também, digamos, esta carreira, e eu aproveito para felicitar, acho, como foi dito,
outstanding career of Dr. Fernando Gomes,
e o jornalista Paulo Sérgio,
and journalist Paulo Sérgio said that it's a brilliant career which will be remembered for a very long time. But I come here to thank you to host an event for the second time in the city of Viseu.
O desporto, de facto, é fundamental às nossas vidas e tratá-lo, digamos, da forma mais correta, como aquilo que vieram fazer, digamos,
and that's what's been done here. Sports get nations together, peoples together. It's to bring people together, and it's not to oppose people and to generate violence. And so we have responsibilities. So many people that know what they're talking about, so many authorities in their fields that come from other countries of the European Union to discuss this subject. It is important to see that this is an important sector of society and that we can do it in a more in a closer way and in a more elevated way, if you care.
Tenha vindo fazer comunicado público insurgir-se contra a violência no último jogo.
There was this public announcement condemning violence in a recent sports event, and people in charge are actually noticing it and calling the attention of the public for that. But I really would like to thank the organizers for hosting this event here in Viseu. And I mean, in a country like ours, asymmetries are palpable. They're not just economic asymmetries, but even geographical asymmetries. And in terms of culture, in sports too. And the distances between the different clubs, sports clubs in Portugal. But, so you have a link in championships that begin in the north and goes down the line of the coast, goes down the coastline. We should have the opportunity to have events like this in other parts of the country, even more in the interior.
Ou era o Lusitano de Évora no passado,
Lusitano de Évora in the past, or Elvas, or Campo Maior, Tondela, or Chaves, Académico of Viseu, and that was it. Now that we have new possibilities, and Dr. Fernando Gomes mentioned that this and so many clubs and so many associations and sports clubs that really welcome young people and support them. And there's another feature here that we should highlight here. With the involvement of parents, and that needs sometimes some correction in terms of behavior, because they really take their children to competitions, to sports events, but it's a way of connecting to the sports, to sports, and get society to get closer together and make people stronger. I would really like to thank you. We'll welcome with open arms for future events. We have adapted in terms of facilities, different kinds of utilities, tourism facilities and sports facilities. When I come before this audience to thank you, it's synonymous with the fact that something is changing, and the country acknowledges that we have regions in the interior that are also relevant. So events like this can help us to be a more homogeneous country. Thank you very much, and I would like to congratulate you all. I would like to very specially greet that I know very well, Professor Escada, and that now in a society, from a society where that is now being lifted out of poor conditions. Thank you very much. And please, we all welcome you in sports events or other kinds of events or occasions. Thank you.
A segunda edição do S4 Congress chega assim ao fim.
S4 Congress second edition comes to an end. Thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you on the next edition.
Mais seguros, protegidos e acolhedores. Bom regresso a casa. Obrigada.
Talking about more secure, protected events. Thank you, and have a safe trip back home.